All right, next agenda item is public comments. Mr. Cumberland?
Since I'm the only public here. If you don't want to give my name and address, if you don't know by now, it's a sad thing. A situation came up since the last I came to a planning board meeting that I wanted you guys to kind of get on the radar. A resident has approached me specifically about a problem with our tree save ordinance. She lives in a newer neighborhood. She is on the outside border of the neighborhood, so the back of her yard actually backs up to a tree save area. One of the things that we don't have very clearly spelled out in our tree save ordinance is maintenance of a tree save ordinance. So in her tree save ordinance in her backyard, she had a large dead tree. And she took the dead tree and she cut it down. And the planning and zoning department is telling her basically she now has to mitigate for the dead tree that was taken down. Because our ordinance don't say anything about maintaining the tree save ordinance with dead trees. She also had taken down a tree that was leaning at about a 45-degree angle that was dying, and would have been, if it had died and fallen over, it would have ended up on her back patio. So she had both trees taken out, one dead, one sick and dying, and now she's being told that she has to mitigate those trees. She didn't have a problem with that. She was planning on doing some landscaping in the backyard anyway and planting new trees. But the fact that we don't have any kind of section in our tree save ordinance for maintenance of the tree save area is something we need to think about clarifying or fixing before it's an issue. In speaking with Cheryl, our clerk, her response is you shouldn't even have a tree save area in someone's yard or in some private residence yard. It should be outside the property line so that this wouldn't be an issue.
Was it on her property?
It was on her property, but it's in the tree save area, and so she took down one dead tree, one dying tree, and now she's being told she has to mitigate the trees. And
Who told her that?
Our planning and zoning department.
I don't believe that's correct. Tree save mitigation is only for developers, not for landowners.
Well, that's where, again, we need to clarify so that it's very crystal clear what residents can and cannot do on their property, and if it's a specific tree save ordinance issue. Cheryl's got something here.
The issue came up, the homeowner wanted to put a pool in the tree save area. Tree save areas are shown just like an easement on your survey. You cannot put any structure in a tree save area whether or not it has trees, and the whole idea of it was to have trees. So she seemed to think that if she got rid of the trees, then she could put a pool there, but the truth is you can't put a pool in the tree save area. And what the planning and zoning has told her, the permits and all, is that you have to do mitigation just like the ordinance says. When trees come down there, then you have to mitigate, replace them.
Right, but I thought mitigation, the actual act of mitigation was for developers.
This is anytime we cut down a tree of a certain diameter, it's considered a heritage tree, or for every diameter,
Right.
It's a 2-foot diameter tree, you have to mitigate 3 trees that are 6 inches or something to that
When you
effect.
say you have to.
That wasn't
I
how
thought
Tim
that
and Susan
you have to
interpreted it. They've
the
interpreted it.
developer.
Well, again, it needs to be cleared out more specifically. The incident with this particular resident is just an example. I don't want this to become an issue with anybody else who has property where there's tree save on their property and they've got a dead tree and they cut it down and we attack it, basically. So now you have to plant 4 of the tree somewhere. So it's just one of those things that we need to add to the list of potential problems or loopholes in our system that we need to close and clarify.
Mike, to Cheryl's point, if the trees are removed and we've got policy set up to mitigate for those trees, is what more would we need in form of a maintenance plan?
Well, would you take down a dead or dying tree in your yard?
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's all she's asking to do.
Okay.
It's actually borderline ridiculous.
I agree.
If somebody takes down a tree, we ask them to plant 3 or 4 more trees, it's nuts. We don't need to have ordinances like that. That's one of the problems with Wesley Chapel, And that's why we have such bad press out there, is that we have these kind of things that really don't make sense.
That's why I'm bringing it to the planning board's attention.
Okay. They know it's a tree save ordinance when they bought the property, correct?
Probably not.
That's probably the problem, because people, and I believe, I heard they bought it from the developer. People aren't aware that they have tree save areas.
Okay.
And they are a real aggravation for planning and zoning to keep track of. When somebody comes to do something, you gotta go find out if they have tree save. And then they can't do things in the tree save.
None of this property's in the HOA common area?
No, this is a newer subdivision. It's a very oddly laid out lot. The developer made a mistake that if you walk straight out her front door, that's considered the side of her lot.
It's
The
Wesley.
developer missed it.
It's Wesley Pond.
Yeah, the developer missed it, the planning board missed it, council missed it, everybody missed it. The house is where you would expect to see the house on the lot, but it's considered the side yard as her front door because of the way the lot is. She's got a ton of acreage off to the side of her house, but she wants a pool just off of her deck, and the tree that was hanging. It would be like a tree that was, the stump is over where Cheryl is, but the tree grew at an angle, so if it falls, it's gonna hit me right here.
Okay, so,
So it's 50 feet from her house is where the stump is, but the tree was hanging over her patio.
so I think we're all in agreement, if the tree, regardless, it was a heritage tree in the tree save area and a protected lot, and the tree was going to fall, or storm caused it to fall or get damaged to damage your house, yes, you would, like anything else, you would cut the tree, right, to protect the property, right? But the other part of it is, if you cut the tree and then you decide that you want to build a shed, a pool, extend your driveway in the tree save area, that would not be okay.
Actually, I think it ought to be okay. I think if I have a piece of property and I want to cut down a tree, I should be able to cut down that tree. It's my tree.
This is where it gets kind of fishy, and I'm not asking you to solve the solution to this problem tonight. I just want you to put it on the radar, and when you review the tree save ordinance, consider adding a section for maintenance of the tree save areas if you've got a dead or dying tree.
Can you define maintenance?
Taking out dead or dying trees, I would consider maintenance.
Well, good thing we actually have a subcommittee.
Well, that's why
handling
I brought it up.
this specifically, so, and that's good. I think we're gonna add it to subcommittee reviews.
So that's all I ask. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next agenda item is gonna be additions, deletions, and approval of the agenda. Any changes they want to make? Nope. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So motion to approve agenda.
Everybody.
Approve a second.
Jackson, all in favor? Aye. The next agenda item is oath of office for reappointed members.
Okay, we have several new members. The first one is Deb Bledsoe. Put your left hand down on there.
I, Deb Bledsoe, do solemnly and sincerely swear that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States, that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government thereof, that I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution and laws of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, to the best of my knowledge and ability, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office as planning board member, so help me God. Congratulations. Thank you.
Woo! Speech.
And Vince is next. Okay, left hand button.
I, Vince Garrett, do solemnly and sincerely swear that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States, that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government thereof, that I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution and laws of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, to the best of my knowledge and ability, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office as planning board member, so help me God. Thanks.
He signed it and covered it.
Yeah.
And to the other end.
I think I've seen this before. I, Michael Kennery, do solemnly and sincerely swear that I will support the Constitution and the laws of the United States, that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government. Therefore, I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the constitutional laws of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, to the best of my knowledge and ability, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office as a planning board member, so help me God. Who's the vice chair?
Now, John Souza was appointed as chairman for another year, so I have an oath of office for him too.
All right, John Souza Sr., do solemnly and sincerely swear that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States, that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government therefore, that I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution and laws of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, to the best of my knowledge and ability, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office as planning board chairman, so help me God.
At least,
Yeah, Sandy's vice chair. I don't know. I hope she'd be here tonight. I haven't had a chance to contact her. Cheryl, have you heard from Dr. Ellis?
She's doing the medical emergency stuff. I think
Okay.
she's in Atlanta or somewhere.
What do you guys think about tabling vice chair until next month?
I agree.
Yes.
Okay, that way I'll get hold of Dr. Ellis and find out if she's still interested and discuss that together. All right.
Do we have a motion for that?
I don't think so. No. We'll just table that until next month. All right, on to number 6, approval of minutes. Any questions on minutes?
Move we approve the minutes. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Number 7, council member discussion. So at the last council meeting, I talked with Paul and Bill, them being the two that haven't been here yet. Paul said he was going to be out of town, that he couldn't make it. Paul's going to do his best to try. So I was hoping that Paul would be here to join us today. Have you heard anything, Cheryl?
No.
No? Okay. In lieu of that, Mr. Como, you're here. Would you mind having a small discussion with us?
I'll answer any questions that come up.
Do you have anything that you'd like to talk with us about?
Other than what we already discussed, no.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Como? All right, thank you. Moving on, number 8, text amendment for solar generating facility. All right.
You can get up if you
Shelley, if you
want.
wouldn't mind.
Where would you like me to go?
Well, one thing, welcome. I don't think any of us have really formally met you yet, so please introduce yourself.
Mike, out there, and, yeah, I guess so. I talked to you on the phone now.
You talk to me, sir.
We're not, oh, is this here? Do you want me to stand here, or do I
Oh,
have
that's
to go
wherever
over
you
here?
feel comfortable.
We have for you tonight 3 proposed text amendments. That's to the zoning ordinance. You should, more or less, you've had quite a lot of discussion, like on the construction trailer, sales trailer, office trailer, that kind of stuff. I think the other two, solar generating facility, that's sort of its professional name, I guess. And if you look at the definition, it's ground mounted. So if you're going to put them on your roof, it really wouldn't apply to you. And that could be a discussion point for you tonight. Do you want to include those? The other discussion point might be if you wanted to divide them up into maybe sizes. You know, it's one of the ordinances I saw, if it was under 6,000 square feet, you know, that was, you treated those a little different than anything over 6,000 square feet. Well, just to give you some background, these solar generating facilities, there seems to be about 3 different types. Some of the more personal private ones that you would see primarily on individual properties. Sometimes they're on, you know, single family residential houses or maybe accessory structures or barns. Sometimes they are mounted behind it. The other one is again, usually an individual user, maybe a hospital. If you travel US 70 outside of Salisbury and you go past the Freightliner plant in Cleveland, there is a solar farm or a solar generating facility right in front of the plant that you can see as you sit at the, you know, stoplight, and you have those. And then you have the ones probably you're more familiar with because there's several of them right around here, these more or less large area ones. They can be 20, 30, 100 acres. There is one in Cabarrus County that's 600 acres. It's on multiple parcels and it crosses roads. It's off 601, just right outside of Midland. I pass it twice a day, so I've watched it all this winter. They cleared that property. They timbered it and cleared it and then put it in. Most of the times they're on farmland. They've already been cleared. That's ideally what they want. I did work with one a couple of years ago. It was family owned. They wanted to generate some income in order to keep the farm in the family. So they needed some more income. And it was in an old soybean field. So typically that's the kind you see. I think what's been proposed, this is a first go around at this. So if you would like, we can go down individually, go down the list a little bit. And you know, it's just the first initial draft of some of the things that you had talked about but put in where it would fit in the ordinance, you know, with the definitions and then suggested regulations. You'll need to put them in, insert solar generating under the essential services. I guess I should preface it by saying somebody could do it now, depending on, you know, is it a class 2 or a class 3? Maybe I ought to back up by saying class 2s are allowed in any of your zoning districts. That's all your residential, all your commercial, and in your industrial. Class 3s, however, are only allowed in the business and the industrial.
Are they both class 2s and 3s needed
Both of them are conditional use, and I would recommend that you keep them as conditional uses. Yes. So, you got the definition, and then you've got suggested supplemental regulations as a new section in 6.10.7. And again, these are just discussion points. These are some of the things you had talked about in the past.
Real quick question on the definition. Mm-hmm. You got solar generating facility. Is that a typical term to be used? Because I was thinking maybe it should be like solar electricity generating facility, just to be clear.
Well,
I'm wondering, is that a typical term?
I've seen several of them. Solar power generating facility, that's what they do generate, is electricity.
When I just look at solar generating, I'm thinking we generated solar?
Well, at least the addition of energy, right? You know,
So solar electricity or energy or power or something.
Okay.
I'm just thinking that we guys is that a little bit clearer the definition.
Well, you know, I didn't really want to use solar farms, because that doesn't really say exactly what we're talking about. So we could put solar power generating facility, solar electric generating facility. You know, sometimes people have batteries with them. They're not always on the grid.
Right. Okay.
But, you know, that's, so you wanna put it a little bit different than that? Solar electric generating facility, solar electric facility, so, because they do generate.
I like the term solar power.
Okay, solar.
Again, just to be a little more descriptive.
Well, except in class, in your accessory service, and I don't know if you all have the ordinance with you, it talks about power generating facilities.
Mhm.
So,
So this one would be specific to solar power.
uh-huh.
Right.
I mean, you're allowed to have solar, you're allowed to have power generating facilities, transmission and distribution lines. So, you know, you've already got that in there. So it's just, you know, you could put power generating, including solar powered facilities. That's really what you're talking about. I mean, I don't think you're talking about, you know, Duke Power putting them. I guess if they wanted to put a nuclear power plant or one of their steam generating plants, I guess you could do that.
Well, wouldn't it be better to avoid having because if we say that it's solar power, then it would be something that's just solar power, and if it's something that, other than that's considered power, that's like energy, then they want to come back and do it again. So should we put in there solar energy to make it like all-encompassing, or solar power and energy, just so it's an all-encompassing thing, so we wouldn't have to revisit it again? Or does that open it up to too many loopholes? And I don't think that there's going to be a reactor that's going to come in here. But
No.
I don't know. I mean,
Well, if you remember years ago when they used to burn trash.
right, yeah. So.
But, you know, it does say solar generating facility utilize ground-mounted solar panels with associated substation transmission and distribution system for electricity generating.
And that's the key, when you're transmitting it, that's where the key of it is, I believe. Because you're creating the power, then you have to move it somewhere else.
You have to put it in a grid.
You're not using, the two other examples you gave earlier is, I'm using the solar power to heat my pool or my house. I'm using the solar power in level 2 to run my business with the lights and the machinery. This one we're basically talking about is, I'm using the solar power, in this case this is commercial, however you want to call it, for profit, right? And I'm generating it on my 600 acres and I'm selling it to Duke or a power company.
Yeah.
I'm using, it's a business. It's not for recreational or maintaining my property. It is a business. So commercial.
Well, I think if you had one, say, the shopping center over here, or you had a hospital, or the freight line plant, they, you know, sometimes they're strictly used in that business. Of late, they've been transferring them to the grid. My sister has recently installed it last year, and she has it on her garage, and it's hooked to the grid. I asked her, I said, do you know how to have batteries? What happens if the light goes out? She's going to be out just like all of us, you know. So I think you have some points to be made for this. You know, anytime you make these text amendments, you know, you can't make it so narrowly defined that you're only hitting one particular site or one particular option. You know, you need to expand it, and that's sometimes problematic, is making sure that you cover every possibility. And who can we always make possibilities, right? We can't always tell what the future's going to bring. I mean, we all have electronic cars, and you're going to plug them in. They're still on the grid. I mean, if ideally you were going to get off the grid, you'd have a solar-powered charging station, and you plug your car into that, and then the whole point is to get off the grid. So.
Mr. Susan, from a council's perspective, The only thing I would add here is this is a somewhat time-sensitive issue where the reason the bill for de-annexation was withdrawn by Tommy Tucker was he gave us a 6-month window to adopt solar language text amendments, just like we did with senior housing. I don't expect, from a council's perspective, I don't expect it to be perfect on the first pass. If we, just like with senior housing, we adopted it, then we massaged it. I think it needs to be something we can get completed in the next, well, we're down into, 4 months now, to meet the conditions that Senator Tucker's put out for us. If we have to change it or update it as we go, let's not try to get it perfect the first time and it takes 6 or 8 months to do that.
And our charge is to develop text amendments for a solar, and I know we can't use the term farm, but a solar farm, right? A higher volume type deal. So to that point, I agree. Let's move on and see what we can come up with.
And when I stood on the Senate floor in Raleigh and spoke to the rest of the senators, I told them this was not something that we opposed, and this was not something that should take a long time to do. It may take a little bit of massaging to get it perfect, but we need something, we need to show that we're getting this done, and it's going to go through.
And so if I go back, you want to put on the definition that it's solar power generating facility, is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Yes.
I would like to point out, we look for in Union County and they have virtually nothing. So some of these suggestions and whatever are from either my own experience, but I did look at a couple of them. But Union County didn't have anything.
Union County doesn't have anything for solar farms? They have building permits specific to it.
Well, they have essential services, but they don't say anything specific about solar generating facilities. They don't have anything. It's kind of detailed. Now, some of the other ordinances, this is where some of this is coming from. There's some other ordinances I picked up. It's a multiple ones. If you want to go down those, about the 100-foot perimeter buffer using existing vegetation to the greatest extent. And then there's another setback of 50 feet. So that's 150 feet off the property line.
Oh, it's 50 feet from the perimeter buffer.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I actually circled that because I was confused.
So why does it need to be that?
I don't know. That's just a suggestion.
Did it come from another town?
Yes.
I don't like that. I think it's too much of a setback, 100 feet.
That's quite a bit.
Huge.
Well, I think with the setback was, when you read it, you're gonna have the natural setback already, wherever you build the solar generating place, okay? At the commercial level, is you're gonna have the mandatory setbacks wherever it is for the road, right? And then, in this case, if you build it by existing community, right, you could build that right up the road here off of Field of Church if you wanted to. There's enough land, right? You already have existing houses, you already have an infrastructure, roads, buildings, right? We don't know what the glare factor is on that, but you need to put something as was written there, a perimeter fence, buffer, a berm, to shield it from the motorist eyes. There's a height requirement for these, that they need to be off the ground X amount of feet to maximize. But you do have to have, maybe 150 feet's a little extreme, depending on the land layout, but you're gonna have a substantial buffer. Because we don't know where these are gonna go, to a degree at the moment.
You brought that up. I'm not, that familiar with what I know what they look like, and there's different types. What about with the airport being out in that direction, planes coming over, is that gonna be any type of, when you spoke about a glare factor for the motorists, so I'm wondering if there's gonna be any kind of.
Well, if it's
I don't know, like I said.
if it's a proper solar setup, they'll tilt and move depending on the day. The best way to describe it, when you look at them, they're like giant sunflower plants. Is that what they're called? Some of them will move. They'll travel.
Oh, well, a little of it, but generally they're pretty fixed and
Yeah, depending.
they sort of face the south.
Okay.
And they're not that high. I'm 5'1" or something like that, and They're a little bit tiered, but they certainly are not over 7
8
8
feet.
feet.
No.
You know, they're not, and they're fixed on, sort of aluminum stands and panels. You do have an airport overlay, which, would kick in too, but the newer technicians, they don't glare, you don't really see them, you don't hear them. I mean, you have to be from here to that wall to even slightly hear a humming that goes on. I mean, they sit on these stands and they have wires that go down to the end of the roads, and then they move on out and they have a little substation. They're really pretty innocuous, except if the terrain is such, you can see them really well. Sometimes you can't even tell they're there, particularly in this time of year, you can't see them through the foliage. But if it's a little hilly and they got them up, you're gonna see them, and there's no amount of buffering that's really gonna get that. Because the whole point is they're supposed to be out and get the sun, so. This was just, like say, a suggestion.
Mrs. Platter?
There's two in Union County. I don't know why there aren't any rules if they're big. There's one before you get to Parkwood School on the right. And there's another one, I can't think of the name, I don't think it's Netherland Road, but somewhere in that vicinity, there is another power, because we began to look at them, solar farms.
Well, there's one on 70, Highway 75, around Mineral Springs.
Yeah,
When
that's
you
Frank
drive
Harris's.
on the road to Waxhaw, there's one down there just on the other side of the railroad tracks.
So we do have them in Union County.
We have
Oh,
three.
you have
There's
three.
three.
So that's
There's
three.
one on White Store Road, there's one on Rocky River that's 400 acres.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's one on Newtown Road that's maybe, I don't know, 40 or 50 acres. It's not very big. But the one at White Store, I think is about 100 acres. But the one on Rocky River Road is 400 acres.
Is that the one you can see from?
For miles and miles, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
From
supposedly.
75?
No, on Rocky River.
But it could,
I don't know about
all I know is
75.
that you have 75, you got the railroad tracks, and then you see them. So I don't know
Yeah.
how far it goes back, but you can see it from Highway 75.
Mr. Killen?
The people I've spoken to about this specifically say, they don't mind if it's out in the country, you drive by and look over and see the solar farms. But if it's going to be next to a developed subdivision or something that might potentially be a developed subdivision, they'd like to have a berm, a buffer, something that will allow there to be a visual check between the solar farm and the subdivision, or the solar farm and the main road. Most of the ones that have been put in Union County started off as cornfields and got converted over to solar farms. The other concern is whether people are going to buy wooded areas, clear cut it, just to put in solar farms. And I don't see that being a big problem. I think more you want open flat land. But the biggest one I've heard from most of the people I've spoken to about this is if there's going to be one at the corner of the intersection of Newtown Road and Cottonson, is because of the topography, you're going to see it no matter how big the berm you put in. But let's try to have some kind of a berm, a buffer, a planted area, very similar to, they did the power substation on Newtown Road across from the Stonegate subdivision. They put a really nice buffer all the way around that, and that thing has got to go. Some of those power poles go 100 feet tall. And you drive by it, you can see it, but it doesn't just jump out at you. So those are the concerns that I've heard from most of the residents that I've spoken to.
Thank you.
So about this setback, it just seems to be I think it's excessive.
I think so, too.
I think it's excessive, 100 feet, because you're eating up a ton of land. Are we talking 100 feet just on the street side, or are we talking 100 feet all over?
Perimeter would be all the way around.
That's an existing vegetation, leave it alone. I mean, the subdivision is what, 100 feet in the front, 50 on the sides, I think. Is that right? I believe no.
50 in the front,
What is it?
50 in the front, and then down to 40 if you
15
have a fence
feet?
or a wall.
50.
50.
50 in the front.
Yeah.
And how much?
40 if you have a fence or a wall.
Right. So 150
Or-
for these structures versus a house. I don't see, well, the house has a setback as well, but
The house is a lot more aesthetically pleasing.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
I don't think 100 feet for a setback is unreasonable for something, this is still a commercial enterprise. You know, they're not that big. 150 feet is a lot, but I think 100 feet all around, if you think about where they're going to be built, right? Because they're not going to build these in a commercial area because we don't have a commercial zone where someone's going to say, hey, I'd rather build this solar generating facility here instead of a supermarket or something else, right? That's near a road system. These are going to be usually set off a little off a main thoroughfare like Potter Road 84. At least I hope so.
So correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just thinking, if you had, say, 300 by 300 foot piece of property, right? Which is 2 acres,
Okay.
right? 90,000 square feet. You could put one solar panel right in the middle. That's on 2 acres.
But we're
That's the type of setback
discussing
we're
this
talking
is,
about.
this is not
That kinda
going to
gives
be
you a feel
someone.
for, I need almost an acre on all sides.
Yeah, but no one is going to go into the solar generating business to sell back to a power company or do whatever they wish with it at this level. This is a for-profit business. I hope this is a commercial endeavor. So they're going to have more land. They might have to have a minimum of 40 acres to start up a solar generating facility. But
That was one of the other
yeah,
questions, just you could require a minimum amount of thing. I think to look at a 100-foot perimeter, it's like having setbacks and you have that building envelope in between. And maybe at the road, but usually they're only serviced. I mean, there's nobody mans it.
no.
They have gravel roads and you sort of, a lot of times they are landscaped right up and really, you know, they may have a street number or a small sign, but that's it. They don't have like a big commercial thing that you would know where it was. It's not like there's a lot of maintenance to it and you have somebody living on site and, you know, doing stuff, so.
Can you just explain to me, so I understand clearly, if you have a road, tell me where the 50 feet is and the 100 feet.
Well, the setback would be 50 feet off, as with any house, would be off the property line. In addition, you could say you have to have a 100-foot buffer perimeter all the way around it. So I guess is what you're asking is that do you set up the 100-foot perimeter? 100 feet off, and that gives you stuff, and then
Is that 100 foot of setback?
it would be like your tree canopy area. It's a buffer. And generally, you know, under your ordinance, you can't do anything in that buffer. They couldn't put, and they wouldn't want to put, these solar panels under trees. That would defeat the whole purpose.
So, excuse me, but tell me, so I'm clear, because I'm not clear right now. Tell me how far back is unusable land from the property line? Is it 150 feet?
Yes,
It's way too much.
Miss, throwing it out.
I say the more they've got to cover it up, the better. Well, Shelley, how does the setback suggestions you have here, how do they compare with what code we already have written? You said we already have code written for general electrical substations?
Yeah, and it varies on the zoning districts they're in. There would be, you know, your zoning district says you have single family and then it says all other uses.
Okay.
So, let's see if I can give some examples here.
You looked it up.
Okay.
Chuck, to answer one of your questions, you could do it very similar to what we did with the berms. You could say that the setback has to be X, but if you plant a berm or a screen buffer from the road, you can reduce that by whatever percentage you decide. Does that make sense? If you say it's going to be 100 feet, but if you're going to put in a berm and a screen buffer, you can reduce that to 75, or from 150 down to 100, or whatever numbers you plug in there.
But I don't think we want to get just hung up on the distance of a 100-foot perimeter around the property. I understand the Smith properties, but some of the other suggestions that she wrote, a perimeter fence of at least 8 feet high, that could be an option. The landscaping of a berm or trees, right? those are other things that you could do besides just a setback, but you're still gonna need a minimum setback from the road and someone else's property. This is still going to be a commercial, low-maintenance enterprise.
And I've never seen one that wasn't fenced in.
Yeah, I think under their, probably for their insurance, they're gonna want it fenced in. My experience is they don't particularly like berms. I think a lot of times what I heard when I asked that, I said, why not a berm? And they said, well, you put the landscaping, the berm, and then the fence, and then they said, well, somebody might try to scale the fence. So, I don't know. They still don't want too much blockage of the sunlight. That's the other thing that goes on with this.
Well, I like to say, just at the heart of this, you think about the landowners here in West Chapel, right? Someone's got 100 acres, 48, whatever. They have a lot of opportunities, right? They could do a subdivision, and that's going to add to our traffic, that's going to add to our schools, right? For a while there, you could do a senior subdivision, and that may not add to schools as much, but still traffic, everything else. And so these, or do farming, right? And so to me, this is a great potential alternative to a landowner putting in a subdivision. So I think it behooves of us to make it as attractive as possible, to make it an attractive option so that a landowner can do something with their property other than farming or subdivision development, which is going to add to some of the complexities we already have with schools and traffic and everything else. So I think I'm just saying at the heart of it, to me, I think it should be attractive to a landowner to where we don't take as much, their potential way to do this. Of course, at the same time, we need to balance what's good for the town.
Right, but you still need the setback.
Right, still need setback to balance.
The setback has to be at least a minimum of 50 feet. Regardless how you look at it, the setback still, from the road, the property line still has to be about 50 feet.
I think that's a good number. I don't know if it has to be, but I think that's a good number.
And then from there, all the ones I've seen have had some sort of perimeter fence. However it may be, dog-eared, translucent slats, chain link fence, whatever they do. But they usually have some sort of fence, perimeter fence, because they don't want people in there messing with their
security.
Right, for security. Usually I've seen them, they have gravel, right? Because they don't want asphalt. That just creates more problems and heat to those things. So it's pervious, you don't have to worry about that. And the ones I've seen, I have not personally seen anyone where they've done plantings around there, like evergreen trees or something like that.
They're on the outside of the fencing. Again, they don't want anything inside. And answer to your question, Class 2s, which would be allowed in your residential areas. This is R40, which predominantly is what your zoning district. Essential Services Class 2 has a 300-foot minimum front yard.
Wait, that's our ordinance now?
Yeah, and 10 feet on the sides.
So that's for power.
Yeah.
This for power generation, or?
Yeah.
You
Well,
too,
that's for Class 2s, which are not the real power generating ones. Those are not allowed in the residential areas. And so that's why the question is, you going to do them as Class 2s or are you going to do them as Class 3s?
Where are you in the ordinance? Can you see that? 300-foot setback?
I'm on page 5.7 under the zoning districts, zoning district regulations. Talks about essential has all the, residential, and it has churches and whatever, and then it has for essential services, front yard setback is 300 feet, natural gas substation is 75 feet from the edge of the existing pavement to the fence line.
Class 3 is called generation, production, or treatment facilities. So would it not be a Class 3?
Well, that's one of the questions tonight. Do you want them allowed in all the districts or just in your business industrial districts? Because most of your area is zone residential.
But doesn't that come back from over 10 years ago when they did the substation by Stonegate? That's where that came from.
It was amended in 2008.
Right, exactly, that's where that one came from.
Well, up to 2010.
Right. But that's where that format.
I'm just saying that's what it says, so if it says that, maybe you need to amend it if you're not going to put it in there.
But as we mentioned earlier, going into uncharted territory. And I think 150 feet was something, and I agree with you, this is passive. This is passive in itself, that it's not, and I'm not gonna say the power generating plants are an eyesore or they're evil by any means, they're not. But this is passive in the sense that it's not creating anything, as you mentioned earlier. There's no traffic, there's no global emissions or anything like that, to borrow that word. But still, I think 100 feet is a fair number, because this is going to be built on a larger scale to make it profitable for businessmen, farmers, whoever they want to be, landowners. So I don't think if you make it too small, like 50 or 75, whatever it would be for them, I believe like a perimeter fence would be fine. 100 feet off the road or the property line and put a perimeter fence, and like I said, they're not that very tall that I've seen in nature. I think is a good starting point to work from.
Well, and to Mike's point, this is gonna be an organic type ordinance, I think, or text. I think we're gonna probably look at it the first go around, and if we need to massage it, we can massage it. I'd like for us to come to something that we can all agree on, though, move past this first point, because we've got a lot of other points to talk about.
Should we think about a 100-foot perimeter, like you suggested?
And then you can work from there.
What do you think?
Because remember, these are all going to be conditional use. So it's also going to play into the topography of the land and where it fits. So if you don't have 100 feet, then you can adjust it. But I think 100 feet is a good working number, because we know this is going to be on a larger scale of property.
So we're saying a minimum of 100 feet setback, right?
Minimum is fine.
Right, so they want to go, like I said, if it's 200, 300 feet, of course they can do.
That's their choice.
Cheryl, what's the setback for commercial? Please?
Well, guess what in this ordinance? It doesn't even talk, I'm in the business district, B1, what's the rest of them? Or B2 shopping centers. They don't, this is what I found a little troublesome. They're only talking about essential services forced, yet in the chart, the matrix allows it all as conditional uses, but there's no setbacks except 10 feet, 65, like in a B2.
You said 65 feet?
Yeah. All of the use is 65 in existing right of way.
I don't think you're gonna have it in B2. People are gonna make more money by putting up a shopping center.
Well, I guess my point would be a B265, why would this have to be more than that?
Because I would think because it's allowed in residential districts.
Yes.
Yeah.
That
B-
makes a
B-
difference.
The class 2s are allowed in all your districts, residential and commercial and industrial. B3s, however, are only allowed in the commercial and industrial districts.
So then we would.
So there be,
In the case you'd have to change the text, if someone's going to do this, I don't want to use the example of Cumberson, but you'd have to change that to a commercial area for this to go in there, because this is definitely, that would definitely be a level 3 generator, like a better word. So that's what you'd have to do. There's
yeah,
no way
you
around
have to
it.
rezone that
Yeah.
to a business district. You could use that, parallel conditional use type thing, or, district rezoning and do it all at one time.
So if we
Then you're
did,
gonna be back to changing your land use plan again.
I think the county zones them RA 200. I don't think they're zoned business. They have their own specific zoning that's RA 200.
And could you create another class of essential
Yeah.
services? So they-
just for this,
So, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And I would, because if we make a business, then in that middle of that cornfield or tree lot, you just created a business district or a business park.
Right.
Because then they could say, me too. And we're getting ahead of ourselves. I don't think 100 feet is a bad number to work with. I like the idea that Deb said, Shelley said, that create its own what it is. Create it as a
RA 200.
RA 200 or a natural generating facility.
You're talking about the new zoning district?
Yeah,
Well, okay, so then this gets back to, I think the hard thing was, I want to make it as attractive to landowners as possible, right? So the landowner has 100 acres of R40, and they're like, you know what, I'm going to do a subdivision, or I'm going to do a solar farm. I want to make it easy, I don't want to have to go rezone it and ask his permission to rezone it for a solar farm. Just let him put in a solar farm, right? And thank goodness, we now have 100 acres that's not going to contribute to schools, not contribute to traffic. I want to make it, to me, I think it makes sense to make it as easy as possible for them to do that, not having to rezone
And still leave it R40.
and still leave it R4.
so if it's residential deemed as R40 right now, and I want to flip it and make it a solar farm, let's just use that word, it's just easier, solar farm, that would be okay,
I think so.
right?
And then if you do, it's 100-foot setbacks.
Okay.
For solar farm specific CUP under R40.
I just don't think the setback for this needs to be more than the setback for commercial. I really don't, I don't see, you know, and I'm kind of looking at it, maybe some of the big picture that we've been hearing before about we are so hard to work with. You know, why should this have a different setback than if you go build a shopping center? I don't see the reason.
Well,
I mean, it's just gonna sit there, it's not gonna talk, it's not gonna pollute, it's not gonna do anything except sit there.
It's not going to generate any money for the town either.
Huh?
It's not going to generate any money for the town.
okay, but what we're also looking at too, it's
As a
wherever,
shopping center would.
wherever this is going to sit, these solar farms in an R40 area, you're still gonna have to run a transmission line to it. And they're still gonna be coming along the right of ways, there's somewhere. And you're still gonna need the setbacks, because one day they will expand the roads, and we might have to do something there. I don't think, get hung up on the number, I don't think 100 feet perimeter from the road to their property line is an outrageous number for a commercial enterprise. I know it's not, you're building Harris Teeter Shopping Center, and you need to get them in and get them out off the road, okay? And this is passive, but considering the land it's gonna take up, I don't think 100 feet is, as a working number right now, outrageous.
Okay, well, we've talked about setback. Somebody put a number out there, and let's move
I
forward.
move it's gonna be 65 feet, the same as commercial.
Even if it's in a residential area.
Yeah.
Mr. Coleman?
One thing I'd like to point out is the people that are thinking about doing this, they're not planning on selling the property. They're planning on doing a long-term lease. So, they put a solar farm in for X number of years, and then they say, okay, we don't want the solar farm there anymore. They come and remove their equipment. The land is still owned by the same owner.
And it's still
And it's
R40.
still on R40.
And it's still R40.
That's up to you
And
guys.
then you could, well, you'll vote on it finally.
Well, it'll be up to you guys, because it doesn't.
I'm gonna try to vote based on the recommendation of the planning board.
I gotta tell you, I'm okay with 65 feet. I mean, I can build a house right now with a, what's this, a 15-foot setback on the sides?
Yeah.
Right, so if I can build a house 15 feet from your property line, then why can't I build a
Okay,
solar structure
What we,
65 feet?
okay, what you're talking about is you allow this to be in an area where there's R40, right? Just say that R40. So you can have a subdivision as big or small as you want, and then you can put this passive commercial enterprise right there, and the only difference is 65 feet from the HOA line, the property line, and an 8-foot perimeter fence if we come to that. And that would be fair.
I think so.
I don't see how you're gonna keep it R40 if you've got setbacks already established for R40.
Well, it's setbacks for structures, it's setbacks for, residences, it's setbacks for garages, accessory uses. But for something that, we're gonna establish a minimum square footage for this solar generating facility, like greater than 6,000 square feet, for instance. It's when you now have such a large facility, right? Now I think that falls into a different category than if you're just building a house or something in R40.
I'm just thinking of what a landowner might say, well, why should you treat me differently? Because I've got R40, I should have the same setbacks as an R40. That's why I think you should change it and have a different.
I think we all know that no matter what we do, somebody is gonna complain and say we're idiots. We can't please everybody. It's just not gonna happen.
And we just came to an agreement that it was 75 feet setback.
Nope.
So we said 60.
You still went to 65. Well, then you're still gonna have an 8-foot perimeter fence?
We haven't got to that bullet point yet. We're still on one.
I agree with you, 150 feet is excessive, but this is still going to be on a large area, and we still don't know where these are going. Because if I have the property, and remember, they're going to build it, you're still going to have those transmission lines, right? And you're still going to have that infrastructure there, and you're still going to have some type of maintenance on it eventually, okay? So if you build it right next to somebody's residential neighborhood, I know it's smaller in stature, but it's still taking up a greater area of land. So you're losing your tree canopy for that area, right? Because you can't have trees in a solar farm, just doesn't make sense. So the distance, I'm not gonna argue with you over the distance, but I don't want it to be treated as a commercial structure in itself, that it's a Harris Teeter or an auto body shop or a doctor's office, because it's not. It's going to be a fixture that's going to be there for a greater period of time, right? That's going to reduce revenue for someone and bring us back power, which I'm happy for in a sense. And then, yes, they can sell it or trade it, whatever else they're going to do, but that land is still going to be commercial in nature. Okay?
I agree.
To a degree.
And to me, I think it's similar to a vineyard or an orchard, right? Something where you have, or, we plant pine trees, right? We're going, harvesting trees. To me, it's where it is. It's going to be a 30-year or longer farm.
Investment.
And I think we don't call it a farm, but, it's substantial. And if someone's going to plant, orchards or vineyards or trees, I think it'd be nice if they had a little bit of buffer
Right.
from your backyard.
Right, from your backyard, but let's just say, any developer is not going to build, they're not going to build naturally within 40 feet of the road anyway, because road widening, utilities, power lines.
Right.
So I think 65 feet is when you look at it too short, and its overall scale. So 75, 100 feet, I would be happy with. I agree with you, 150 feet from the property line all around as a perimeter is a great amount of land that is basically, I believe, is going to go to waste. That you're not going to get any value out of it as a business person, right? My yield per acre is going to be much lower. But am I doing this for the businessman, or am I doing it for the established community that these one day will go next to? Okay, I don't want to go to the far extreme as when they did the last one with the power plant, make them 300 feet away, like greater than a football field.
How about if we do this? How about if we find out on the 3 farms that are out there in Union County, what are the setbacks for them, and go look at them and see what we think?
It's a good idea.
There are times
We have 4 months. But I'd rather, on this one, to get past that you're hard to work with, all of that, I'd rather, if we go in and we say 65 or 75 or 100, and they go, we're 20. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but I don't want to be like the county.
I wonder if it'd be possible to get one of the solar farm representatives to come to our next planning board meeting to talk on behalf of what they do.
Maybe Duke Power. No, just private individuals.
No, they're
Private
groups of them, but Duke doesn't really get into it. If we could maybe steer it a little bit to decide if you want them as class 2s or class 3s. Do you want them in every district, or you just want them in the commercial districts? And then you could go back and just, whatever's in, if they're in the commercial districts, then you could keep them in there, and they're the ones that are about 65, but in R40, essential services class 2 is 300 feet front setback and 100 feet on the side. That's the way it is written now.
Correct.
Well, I think that was envisioning a power plant, a very different type of.
Right.
I go along with that. They should be creating their own niche, because they're unique. And that being said, that they could be put closer to a residential area, right? And then function within that perimeter that is eventually set. But we all know there is going to be a perimeter fence around it of some type.
It says right here, in fact, this is perfect. It says, so let's say the front setback. It says 300 feet for natural gas. Class 2 is 300 feet. Oh, I see. The natural gas substation is 75 feet. Right? And then it says essential services class 4, 10 feet. All other uses 75 feet. So we have all these different types of setbacks for different,
Mm-hmm.
structures, facilities, et cetera. You're right, we could add number 6, solar power generating farms.
But my
65,
question is,
75.
as Shelley brought up, do I want these solar generating plants, businesses, everywhere in what's left of Wesley Chapel?
I say yes. I say the answer is, actually, I would say yes, except for commercial. I don't know about you guys, but to me, it doesn't make sense to have a solar farm between here and Hickory Tap. And that's the only commercial property that's not developed.
All right, I'm agreeing with you on that one, right. And I would want to create a special niche for it, right? As the same way as you go along with agricultural land.
Right.
Okay, so let's use the example that we all can see going out here. We go down Boxer Indian Trail Road, right, past the firehouse, and there's a big open field that goes from Boxer Indian Trail Road all the way over to Lester Davis. All right, that's the visual I'm giving you right now, right? There's not a single house until you get to that Mexican one on the other side of Lester Davis, right? There's no neighborhoods. It's got woods, fields, and a little rolling topography, right? That would be an entire solar farm, and we would be happy with that, correct? That is agricultural land in Union County that is for sale.
Yeah,
Right?
I think
It goes
I don't have a problem with that.
from Newtown Road, pretty much all the way up to 84, from Boxer Indian Trail Road, all over to Lester Davis. Okay?
I think that would be more attractive.
And right now
than
they feel,
some-
they do soybeans,
I
wheat,
agree with that.
sweetgrass there, okay? That's their main crops in that area. Nobody timbers,
I think it makes more sense than a subdivision
okay?
as an alternative, right? If either way, let's go solar.
So that is relatively flat land that you could sit from your car and you can look clear across the Lester Davis, okay? I don't think if you want to make that a special niche of a land, let's just call it agribusiness, let's lack of a better word, an agro farm, right? That you could do that. I know it's a double-
Bonafide farms, don't get me started on that.
Yeah, but that would be a business, so you would just have solar panels all facing that way to the south.
Correct.
Okay, so you wouldn't have to have some sort of screening because we wouldn't require it. It's outside of an 8-foot perimeter fence and 65 feet off the road, because that's their property line.
I think using that as an example,
Visually,
yeah, I think that makes sense to me. I think if we get past that first bullet and say 65-foot perimeter as a holding place, this is what I'm gonna say. Let's say 65 foot is a holding number for now. And let's go visit the farm and find out what their setbacks are and see if it makes sense. I agree with you, Chuck. I think it's a sound.
but I don't see any difference because why I say that is we know one day they're going to expand it, hopefully Boxer Indian Trail Road, okay? And they're going to make improvements along here. And I'm not against building the subdivisions in a sense, but I think as a working number, 75, 100 feet is fair at this moment right here, right? But then do you want that much of a concentration of solar generating plants? Say there's just 3 separate individuals that own them all the way down the road, you know?
Well, yeah, to me, the alternative is a subdivision where they have to go remove homes
Okay.
versus removing some solar panels, right? That's the two
But
options.
well, my question is, would you rather keep it that right now, that is all agricultural land?
I'd rather keep it agriculture.
Keep it
If it's
agriculture,
modest, if it's
and
modest,
then
it's
not make it R40, right? And just leave it as what it is on the map, agricultural land, that's what it is.
Oh, it's not R40?
I don't believe it's R40. And then they could do what they want later on with it when they get rid of the solar farm on the town.
Okay. You guys?
When I'm looking at the color code right here, that's not that designated.
Okay.
Did I make a motion?
I have both maps. I mean, you
Did I
want to
make
see
a
the
motion
zoning
for
map?
65 feet?
I don't know if we need a motion,
Okay,
right? 'Cause we're not,
okay.
but I think 65 feet makes sense. How do you guys feel about the first bullet point to say?
I would make it a little bit more, I think I made that
Could
clear.
we make it 75 just to keep it consistent with the natural gas setback that we have now?
From the front, it's there.
John?
Yeah, it is. David suggesting 75 feet. I think you suggested 75 feet. Vince?
Yeah, I think 75 feet is for the, for simple matter.
All right, for a placeholder, right? 'Cause we're not,
Placeholder.
we're not deciding on this today.
Right,
Let's say
that's a
75
placeholder.
75
Okay,
feet,
so-
and argue on it.
Let me understand, the buffer, or is this, we're talking about setback?
The perimeter, the setback.
Setback of 75 feet from the perimeter. And I don't think we have discussed about any,
Setbacks of, all right.
75 feet.
But what about the perimeter?
No, that is, I would want the perimeter to be 75 feet, period.
Perimeter means it would go all the way around.
Yes, all the way around is 75 feet,
And no 50 foot, that's total.
Total.
total, 75 feet.
All right. So the second bullet point you have is perimeter fence of, I guess you mean at least 8 feet in foot height? Is that-
Right.
With opaque inserts,
That's a screening technique.
right?
I don't have an issue with
Can we dictate the color of those inserts in that chain link fence?
Maybe according to
I
our
thought
fence.
there was something in your ordinance about they can be, they can be clear or usually they're green. Oh, but yeah, I guess you could. That could be, almost in some ways, you could do that under conditional use depending on where it's located. Generally, if it's opaque, a lot of times they're green. That's
Or
what I've
black.
seen. But they've been blue sometimes, kind of a medium blue.
I'd
I don't
say,
think you wouldn't really, why would you want a white? Because that would
Right.
actually attract more attention.
I think if it's green, you know, there's like 4,000 shades of green. But something very dark or black. Just
Can
like
you
your
put
shirt.
advertising on them?
Huh?
Can you put advertising on
If
them?
the town can sell it.
Duke Energy.
So like they could do a chain link fence and put those little wood slats in there,
If the
They're
plastic.
plastic.
or plastic.
They're always plastic.
And that's what we're talking about.
And I think it's,
Around an entire big log property.
I think it's important if you go, where am I? If you go back here to this gas substation, the slats in there aren't wide enough, and so you really do see through them. It needs to be as wide as you possibly can make it to fill up that slot that you slide down on a bias.
Well, the thing is that when chain link fence, it's done by hand. They weave them in there by hand, so they have to be flexible enough that they can get them in the stuff. That's all done by hand, so.
I think it actually just slides down, and you don't have to weave them in and out. My point is, if you go by and look at this guy up here, the little gas substation up here, they are not as wide as they could be. And so therefore you can see through it. You know that, or did you see that? Anyway, it is.
The whole thing looks better, yeah.
The point is, I don't think we want to put little T slats in there. It needs to, we want it to block the view.
You know, I'm just thinking about this, if it was say 100 acres, they do this, we could be talking about, miles of fence. Miles of fence,
You saw
right?
Billy how they did it.
Yeah.
They ran it all the way.
Right.
And I think that has to do with their insurance.
Well, you're right, I mean, they'll do it, and then I just wonder if you stand back and take a look at that, of miles of this chain link fence with those slats that hopefully don't break or maintain. Fade. How's that gonna look? And then if they do come in and take out solar farm and leave the fence. Yeah, just something to think about. This is kind of
Put
what
shooting range in
Yeah.
That'd be great.
So maybe we could say 8-foot fence or 8-foot berm.
They don't like berms.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but offer that as an option.
I-
If the topography allows it.
I would stay away from the berm part because they don't like the berms, like you said, to maximize it, the whole thing about cooling the weather. Any type of fort fence, if you want to do wood, dog-eared, if you wanted to make a living fence and put shrubs around it. I know that wouldn't fly with the insurance people, because they don't want the children in there, but, you know, they're gonna have to have a security fence of some sort,
So not arguing that, but I'm saying
yeah.
allow them to put up a berm, which gives us the same amount of screening as a fence would, only be more natural. So if a property has the dirt to move, and they want to make a berm, so they don't have to spend all the money and time on a fence, I think it's better for the town. Go on.
The reason I was pushing on the berms for the subdivision is not only visually, but it's a security issue where we've had a lot of cars run off the road because there's no berm, end up in people's backyards. The berm adds a little bit of security so that you don't have a car, you don't have the ability to drive a car into the residential property or into the solar plant.
Right. How do you guys feel about 4 8-foot, minimum 8-foot high berm? Again, give them the option.
I'm fine.
If you wanna give the option of an 8-foot berm, that's fine.
I mean, if they decide not to use it because they don't want to.
That's fine.
Is that something that they could address us though in the conditional use section? Okay, then, you know my feelings, less government is better government, let's leave, I mean, let's not put every, let's not plan for every option, I guess, let's just let them come to us with options.
But if it says fence and they come with a CUP, they have to have a fence.
Well, I have, you know, I mean, if you put that in there as a regulation.
Okay.
If
So
we just
you
say, if
want
we just
to
say
put-
add 8-foot high screening, and then let them come with any type of screening that they propose.
Okay. Because you know they're gonna have a fence.
Well,
They gotta have a
right,
fence.
right.
Yeah.
That's their insurance rule.
So we
So
just
for
say
screening-
minimum 8-foot high screening.
Screening, either a berm or fence.
Well, we're saying we know they've gotta have a fence, so,
Well, I thought we were just putting screening and let them, leave that up to them. If they want to do it for insurance purposes and within the fence, and if not, but they'll all be reviewed once we get here, and that's when we go.
Where it's usually a berm, a fence, an opaque fence, or some kind of vegetation.
Right, but I think that what we're saying is if we substitute fence for screening, then it puts the onus on them to decide what type of screening they want, as opposed to leaving their fence, which is us dictating to them the type of screening that would be.
So screening can consist either a berm or you want a perimeter berm or a fence at least 8 feet high with opaque inserts.
Well, now you're being detailed. We're suggesting
saying-
leave
So we're
it
just
as
saying
only
perimeter
say this.
screening of at least 8 feet, at least 8 foot in height.
Well, these companies might have requirements of what, they may not allow you to have a farm unless you have fencing. I mean, there may be
Right,
criteria.
and then that's what they're gonna come here, and then from there, then we'll go from there.
That's why I'd like to see if we can get a rep to come in.
Right,
Talk
but we're not
about
gonna
some of
dictate to
these
them, it
details.
has to be a
To make
fence.
sure we don't restrict
That
the
should be trying to
possibility.
get them to come talk.
If we say fence, I think we should tell them what we want. Not just a chain link fence up there, but a chain link fence with opaque.
Well, see, and that's what I was thinking, that if we just said screening, and if they come back and they present it with a fence, then we can tell them at that time that, I mean, which is, it's in their best interest to come and ask us ahead of time, but at that time, then we can lay out, this is, if you opt for a fence, this is the type of requirements that we have for fencing.
I think we ought to say that up front.
Okay?
I do, so we don't get into all the stuff like we get up here with, when they come up and ask us for
Right.
special things.
Right?
Just say, if you do a fence, it's gotta be this.
Right?
We don't care if you do a fence or a berm, it doesn't matter to us, but if you're gonna do a fence, it needs to be this.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, yeah. Right.
That's all.
Okay.
All right, so just instead of just put screening, you can use a berm. Do you want at a certain height berm?
8 feet.
8 feet, yeah.
So wait, what,
You can use a berm or a fence, and if you use a fence, it's got to be with opaque. You can use a berm or a fence at 8 feet. If you use a fence, it's got to have opaque inserts with it.
Yeah, I don't want to get all wordy, but perimeter screening consisting of berm or fence, and then going to the fence must be What did you just say?
Okay.
Opaque
Not transparent,
with whatever.
Yeah.
Non-transparent, yeah.
which is opaque.
All right, yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying, so that they have an option that we're not just telling them just a fence. The purpose of it is a screening. You can do either a berm or a screen.
Non-transparent, but address Chuck's issue with the
Right.
gas substation down the street.
Yeah.
And then if they're gonna utilize a fence, it has to have opaque.
Correct.
Dark colored opaque or just opaque?
Well,
You wanna
we're
really
gonna
get
be
into
all
the nitty gritties?
We're already, well, I mean,
You
yeah, it's
already
gotta be
kind
dark.
of in it anyway, yeah.
Just saying, it's gotta be dark.
Dark.
Which I think if they're serious about it, then they would know that already, because, you know, they're not just gonna throw up a chain link fence with all that equipment behind it, because then people will see what it is and, you know.
Landscape screening, we already have called out the ordinance section.
Yeah, that's already kind of in order.
That works. Require applicants to hold a neighborhood meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's an easy one.
Yeah, I don't think we call it neighborhood meeting, though, public meeting.
You wanna call it, some places I've seen is community. meeting.
Community.
Yes.
So that's, okay. When you say community, does that mean just the, like, like, people in the neighborhood, or like a public thing where anybody around that would feel that it's gonna be affected by it is, they have to hold a meeting and be notified and that kind of thing? As opposed to just
Well,
saying,
yeah,
hey,
that's why
come to
there's
the clubhouse, we're gonna do
neighboring,
this.
because usually that's where they emphasize is, you say, okay, you gotta have this community meeting, and we wanna see a list, and we wanna see the letter that you send out, and who you're sending it out to.
Yeah.
And then, they held the public meeting, and somebody, either staff or somebody needs to go to the meeting just to make sure that it really was attended, and, what kind of questions were asked, even though you're gonna ask them for a summary and a list of the people who came.
Mhm.
But typically, that's why I think it's really a neighborhood meeting, usually it's a neighborhood meeting unless, you're gonna require them to put a sign up, or you're gonna advertise in the paper, usually they send letters.
Right.
What about a perimeter, saying within a X mile radius, they have to, because, they could say, okay, well, I've got one neighborhood next door, but yet, they may only limit their, if you say within a 2 mile radius or whatever.
Well, yeah, you could do that, I guess, your ordinance already says it has to be adjacent property owners. That's who's gonna get notified on the CUP anyway.
It's- I believe the neighborhood meeting is fine, and because it's gonna be public knowledge anyway, and they're all gonna have a public meeting, i.e. the planning board and i.e. the town council, so it will be public.
Yeah, you get, when they hold a public meeting, public hearing, you may get more, you generally on these community meetings, but if they get up next to one of those big developments, you'll have a good turnout probably.
Yes,
We know that.
Yeah.
All right, the next one.
So neighborhood's all right.
yes,
Yes.
yes, thank you.
And you don't want to specify who's invited?
Well, I could put in something, what's required now by these public hearings, and it's for a neighborhood meeting consisting of adjacent property owners, and it talks about on either side, behind, and across roads, easements,
Yeah.
everything.
So if you're betting, it would be called satellite boxes.
For ordinance, I'll have to figure that, what that is, but it's adjacent property owners.
Yes,
Front of it, behind it, on each side, and you
Yes.
have to include roads.
that's fair.
Okay, require all permits to be secured.
Yes, yes,
Now, see, you do understand, if they do timbering and they do a lot of clearing, they're gonna hit your stormwater stuff. 2,500 feet, square feet.
But they're not putting in impervious, or are they?
No, but well, yours is it's moving the ground cover. So what you've done, the state is under an acre. but yours is 2,500, and so you have to do the storm management and get your permits from the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. It's when you remove ground cover, that's what triggers it.
So any private owner, landowner that removes 2,500 square feet
Yeah.
of ground cover
I think
has
that's,
to do stormwater.
Now, some of
mitigation?
these bona fide farms, and that's for another discussion, some of them, yeah.
I thought it was adding impervious,
Well, maybe your stormwater, but you know, if they clear under the state law, if they clear an acre, and clearing it means removing ground cover, then they're gonna have to have a soil and erosion control permit. So if it's impervious area, because your gravel doesn't count, so maybe I was misspoken. If you, under the state law, it's 1 acre. So if they clear more than 1 acre, they're gonna have to have a soil and erosion permit.
that's fine.
Yeah.
but for the
That's fine, it's
stormwater,
normal.
it's 2,500 of impervious.
Is it impervious area? Okay. But the state law still says you clear more than an acre, it's gonna trigger a soil and erosion control permit.
And that's any landowner for any reason.
Hasn't been done by some people.
Any landowner for any reason.
Even if it's in your own yard, yeah.
Really?
If you're in the watershed, that's the other one, or the, Lake Park today, they're a phase 2 stormwater community, yeah, and they've got real strict regulations. You don't seem to have phase 2, so, yeah, there are some stormwater stuff that would be required. They'd probably have to get, what it means, permits. So it would soil and erosion control if they put a retention pond in. They may have to have a driveway permit. You know, that's kind of stuff. That's why I just said all permits. I don't know. It's kind of doing that. This one was one I had experience with a solar farm. Description of the route to be utilized for transmission distribution system to connect the facility to the electric grid. That gave heartburn when I worked in, because then they found out they were putting those big steel utility poles up, and they were gonna run it down Main Street. That did not suit them well, so the idea they have to describe how they're gonna how they're gonna get on the grid system. What kind of improvements, and they do up the phasing on the stuff, because these solar farms, or these facilities, the big ones, they have a little substation. So that's what that is. And then the other one is submit a written maintenance plan and a process to decommission and remove the panel and frames. I think might also say, and restore the area to its, existing condition. Sometimes I've seen these ordinances, they have bonds. So that's a question. Do you want to have bonds or nothing?
I think so.
A lot of it's in the, I will say, some of it's in the lease agreement that goes with the property owner, but I was just throwing that out. That's another throw out. Maintenance is the same thing, sometimes they put goats in there. They run the mowers up and down in between them because they don't want stuff growing up in front of it, and sometimes they put goats in it, so.
We like
at least,
goats. Goats
huh?
are good.
Yeah, but,
Goats good.
We're a goat-friendly community.
yeah.
I miss the goats on Monroe Road.
I think that's fine, and then also, I think it's also good to include in there that it's, a bond is required.
Yeah.
Well, then if you're gonna do a bond, you need to set an amount.
Okay. I don't know, did we set with the other one, the last, bond discussion that we had?
What's a commercial bond?
Depends on what they've been doing.
But remember, again, just think about this, right? This
Oh.
is a landowner, right, who's having companies license, letting a company come in and license their property. And then the landowner most likely would have to say, I want that company's gonna license it for them to put up the bond. Because for that landowner to have to put up the bond, all this is negotiable for that landowner, right? Because, if you're only talking, say, $500 an acre per year, right? That landowner's getting, we'll say, I don't know those numbers, but they're somewhere around there.
I saw a 30-acre one, and they said it was $67,000.
The bond?
No.
No,
The income, the income.
The lease per year. Interesting.
No, the lease.
So that's just something to think about, right? Is if we require a bond because we love that idea,
Yeah.
that could be potentially a big deal, right? So to remove all those things, to remove everything could be quite a substantial amount of money that if we're asking the landowner to do that would just negate the whole opportunity to do it in Wesley Chapel. I don't know. I'm wondering what does you said Union County doesn't have anything? So that would require bonds. They come in and build right now.
All right, Phil, John, what do you think this is gonna be built on a pretty big scale, right? So, like you said, we wanna make this attractive to the landowners / business people. So, you're talking about they're gonna have to lay out for the site, the state, the plan, the erosion, and these other fees that they're gonna pick up. So they're gonna come to us and they're gonna ask us for a bond, right? Well, we can ask for a bond. Do you think $10,000 is too extreme for a bond, for this type of thing?
Well, it depends on the size, right? If it's, say it's 100 acres, for all I know, it could be $1 million to remove everything. For all I know, I don't know what that number is. So is it $1 million to ask that homeowner to put up a bond for $1 million? Yeah, I think that's too much.
$10,000?
For someone that does 3 acres, might be. For someone that does 100 acres, I mean, so
Would
it's,
you have the bond then put on a percentage of the land value or the land size?
I don't know. This is what I'm thinking. If someone has 100 acres and they want to do it, they have two options again. I'm gonna either sell it and subdivide it, or I'm gonna do a solar farm. Well, if Wesley Chapel is requiring a lot of extra stuff that Union County doesn't ask for, well then why don't they just de-annex, go to Union County and put it in? Now they don't have to put up bonds. Now they don't need the setbacks. Now they don't need, a lot of these other things that we're requiring. I'm just saying that's something to think about, is let's not make it so overly powerful on requirements from Wesley Chapel
Okay.
that they say, you know what, I'm just gonna go to Union County, or I'm gonna put up a subdivision, because it's actually easier. The subdivision developer can handle all those costs and all those bonds, all those permits to be secured, everything.
But we're still going on with the assumption that the landowner is going to go in the solar generating business. They're not going to lease the land for 20 to 30 years.
They're going into the leasing business, correct?
They're going into the leasing business more than likely because of this commercial enterprise, because it's not going to be profitable for anyone at 3 acres.
A lot of these properties right now already lease their land for farming. A lot of
Yes,
soybean,
yeah,
corn,
yeah.
they're leasing that land already.
So-
So now they're saying, instead of leasing it to soybean, I'm gonna lease it to solar farm company.
But we know we don't get to keep the bond, right? And when you put up the bond, if it's a $10,000 bond, you don't actually pay $10,000. You pay a percentage
Oh, right.
to a bond broker.
Right.
So I don't, like I said, a $10,000 bond in itself is not outrageous, but what we're looking for is maybe more, just a not a guarantee, but a way that this goes through that you just don't.
No, I mean, I understand the bond. I think we should have interest on how, be interested in how they're gonna remove it, right? When it goes to funds or time, it doesn't work. I'm just wondering how, I'm just hoping it's not a burden that's too much for the landowner to where they say, this is not something I'm gonna do instead. I just think we need to weigh that, is all I'm saying. And what is that?
All right, so let's take
how much
the-
that costs.
so
I
let's-
think that we need to do more due diligence on this and find out what is a reasonable amount and base it from, because obviously somebody who's got 40 acres is going to be a lot different as far as income than somebody who's got 600 acres. So, we should price it accordingly. Do we do that as a percentage of?
But I agree with David here. That we're trying to encourage people to do this type of development for our environment and everything else. So I'm against the bond, but I would like to see some sort of permit fee or something there that somebody just doesn't go willy-nilly. I don't think this is going to happen on the grand sale. That somebody just goes willy-nilly and says, I want to just start putting these places all over, like the new fad.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
hey, there's a new Starbucks in every corner here. Okay, example, but that's what I don't want that to be, that somebody goes, hey, I'm gonna turn my land into a solar generating plant, and
Right now,
I can
that's
do whatever I
so-
want,
What I'm trying to do is come up with something, whether it's a permit fees or a bond or whatever the case is, something that's gonna help mitigate the cost to the town if in fact it goes belly up. However, we come up with a way to do that is.
Okay, but listen to this. The town doesn't own the land.
Right.
Mr. Adams, Chuck owns the land.
Right.
And he wants to turn it over to Dave, the power company.
Right.
So they're gonna do that own private deal amongst themselves, and they're gonna have this agreement. I still would like a filing fee or a permit fee, right? I'm not too keen about the bond, because I do feel that, John, I want this to succeed as a business, right? And where it is in areas. I don't want to tell somebody they can't have it, but I do want to. I want it to be a certain piece of property. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't believe we're going to see a lot of these on 3 acres and 5
Right,
acre
no.
lots. I don't think no one's going to run a power line to
No.
you for that.
It's,
It's
I mean,
not
they're
gonna
not
generate.
no, they're gonna think about it and then it's not gonna work. It's gonna fizzle. So.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Your Honor.
My experience with them in the past, they pretty well have done their homework.
Mhm.
They don't select these areas unless they've gone to Duke, and Duke's gonna take them over.
Mhm.
And they've already done their dollars and cents, what it's gonna take to get to the grid system and, because Duke's has, for the most part, has to take care of it. Now, you've got the co-op, Union Co-op,
Mhm.
but they've already done enough homework on this. They know who's gonna take it over.
So they take it over, what happens when they're done? What happens when the lease?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean, unless you want, I have seen some, not specific, well, I take that back, I actually did see it. They're in those lease agreements.
So what happens
But
when
we all know with these companies, they lease them, they go to these companies, and then they go to Duke. And now Duke's not just buys it, they're not responsible for the panels and the stands and
Right.
all that. So, but if something happens to that leasing company and they go belly up, then yeah, the property owner's gonna be stuck with it.
And I think from a town standpoint, we don't want that sitting out there
Right.
like a rotted shopping center that is just an eyesore.
Yes, and
We
then
want
the
to
other
go
thing
on-
is how many of them are you really gonna have?
We don't know.
Yeah, you don't know.
I mean, this was something that put up the wind farms, out west. And now you see defunct wind farms just, after 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
They're
That's-
a huge problem.
What would you go with the bond? Have you seen them go with the bond or not a bond?
I've seen it both ways. The most recent one did not have a bond with it, no, but I see people asking about them. I think sometimes what you can look at is, do you remember the big satellite dishes that everybody used to
Yes.
have?
Yes.
From the 80s.
Okay, well, so, yeah. And then as the technology got better, we got smaller ones, but you still had those things everywhere.
Mhm.
Well, now we've all got smaller ones, because I have one. Because we have the little ones. But did you know that they'll take the receivers and everything back? I'm talking about satellite companies, but you're responsible for all that outside stuff.
Right.
There's still one on Cuthbertson Road, just before you get to Newtown, there's a property on the left, it's got the big old satellite dish.
Yes.
Still out there.
My neighbor has one on my property line, sitting right there.
Good Lord, some people had two.
Because you want it? Like, no, I don't want it.
I don't know,
Is the bond encouraging development or stunting development? If they've already done the dollars and cents?
Well, do you want to put the burden on the landowner, or do you want to put the burden on the town?
Not on the town.
I don't want to
So
put
you want the town to collect the bond, or you want the landowner to collect the bond?
What would the bond be used for?
Well, let's say that I own a solar farm company, and I'm leasing your land, and 10 years later, I said, you know what, I don't want to lease your land anymore, I'm gonna take the heads off, the expensive part, and I'm gonna leave you all the posts.
Yeah.
So you end up with acres and acres of concrete posts.
It's gonna look like a drive-through,
Yeah.
basically. It's gonna look like an empty drive-through.
It's gonna-
Not drive-through, drive-in.
Drive in.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's still private owner, it's still a private land.
Yeah.
Plus, you're gonna have probably a bunch of cables buried
Right.
underneath the ground that are gonna.
And substation and everything else. Yeah.
So if you have a bond, it would be to mitigate that on the
Yes.
back end, but the question is the bond held by person leasing the land, the homeowner, leasing the property owner, leasing the land to the power company, or is the city gonna require it? The difference is, I say, well, I really trust these guys, and 10, 15 years from now, I don't really care, I'll be retired in Florida, so I don't care what happens to these 20 acres. But
You mean you're gonna have people call and say, well, all.
the town's calling me saying.
Of course,
do
the other
something.
thing, it'll be so overgrown, you may not be able
The
to.
town's
I would
calling me
say-
saying, do something with my 20 acres of pipes, and I'm saying no, because I need collecting the money from the.
So can you do
Well-
some, can you do something where the town would take, if they didn't mitigate it, that the town could take ownership of the property?
But isn't it gonna cost the town money to fix it again?
No, I'm taking,
No,
no, I'm
it's
taking
not.
40 acres or whatever over.
Well,
I'm
let's
saying
go
maybe
back-
that's something to put in here is if it's not generating power for 6 months or something like that, then the landowner has 6 months to remove all the equipment or be fined, under a typical fining.
The only thing I don't like with that is that, because people can default on that, and they can just go on the ground and they will never collect our money.
But we make
If
farmers,
if we make it to, if we put it on the back end, you'll never get your money. If you put it on the front end, then you at least have, even if it's a percentage, at least you have something to work
But
with.
let's just say,
That's the way
let's
I-
just say the landowner has 50 acres and I lease it to ABC company, right? And then it all goes belly up. I still own the land. Yes, there are structures on the land, these little posts, the brick posts. But if I want to sell my land and have value again, I'm going to make sure I get those, I'm going to knock them down and take care of it. So I can later turn around and make a subdivision or something else down the line, or somebody else come around. So I think it's on the landowner themselves to take care of it. So why put the burden on them with this bond? Because if they let their land go to waste, that's on them. We're not gonna take over and clean up the land, right? We're not the EPA, we're not gonna go over and clean up the land. And what are we gonna do, give it back to the landowner, or sell it, or use it ourselves? I don't think that's the business that we're in here with the bond. This is, as she says, this is a large enterprise, and this is gonna succeed in the first couple of years. So I'm not a big fan with the bond, but I am a fan with the permit, because I think that shows them interest in the fact that they're going to have all their ducks in a row as what we want, and they're gonna be able to say that this is going to go forward for 20 years. This is our goal here.
So in 50 years, it's not gonna be there. It's probably not gonna be as it is now in 50 years, and we still got the posts.
It could get smaller.
Well, the landowner still has the post, right?
The landowner still owns the post.
And
But that's no difference if the landowner put cows on his field or
Right.
a fence around it.
The
He's
question
still
is, are
responsible.
those posts on the landowner's property any different than the posts with the solar equipment? It's still sitting there in big rows, right?
Right?
Sure is ugly.
is a post from a solar panel any different than a silo that's no longer being used by a farmer?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or a chicken coop. That's the
Or chicken coops.
Or,
You mean a poultry house?
Yeah.
but it is different than broken down cars, right? Or broken down boats. So,
Yeah, we don't ask you to put up a bond for a silo, and we don't ask you to do certain things in that regard when it comes to that type of agriculture,
right,
right? Like a barn.
right.
I don't ask you to put a bond. If you don't take care of your bond, that's your business.
Do you want Shelley to research this particular topic a little more?
I would.
I think so, 'cause, it'd be great if you could tell us, hey, these 5 municipal districts, all 5 require bonds, or none of them do.
And what the amount is, or none of them do, they do a permit fee and how much that is.
Yeah, that'd be great.
What the average is.
And can we get the addresses of the 3 existing solar farms?
You can just email us those, maybe we can start a chain and go visit them on our own, or maybe it was a couple up and go, rather than having to do a public meeting where we announce it.
Do you guys know where
Just go groups of
Elizabethan,
1s or 2s.
Elizabethan house, the Elizabethan, the one on Newtown is right across the street from that, down.
Deb, if you send me the
Newtown.
locations, I'll send it out to
Okay.
you. That'd be great.
Now, that one has no slots in the fence. You can
Right.
see right through there. That's got a bit of little gravel, and they just cleared enough trees, and the transmission lines run off the back end of that. But then again, no one lives around it.
What was there before was just corn.
Yeah.
And then, in the interest of time, if we could just email Cheryl or Shelley, both maybe, and any concerns, right? Like, I went and visited this place, it looks like they're 20 feet from the road. I went and visited this place, the fence looks great. you know, anything that you want to announce to everybody, send it to them, include all of us on it, don't respond back. That way we come back next month, and you'll have some research, we've done some research, and it won't be new to us, because we'll all see it in emails.
Would you want to
Now-
have one of the guys to come?
I would love a guy to come. Do we know of anybody? I mean, I don't know any of these, you know, without looking on the internet and
Well,
research.
I think Tim had provided you with a sample ordinance.
No, I meant
But we
a
want-
representative from one of these licensing solar farms.
See the one you were talking about from the Elizabethan home, the old age home? That looks very industrial, does it not? When you drive by, very matter of fact.
Which one is this?
Do you know where Newtown Estates, do you know where the Elizabethan nursing, assisted living, it's on Newtown,
Heading toward
84
Monroe.
going toward Monroe?
Oh, yes, yes.
And then you
yes.
make a right on Clark, or you can go all the way to the bridge and go down 75 and then make a right on Newtown. It's up at that end, it's not on the other end of Newtown.
Okay.
Right by the railroad tracks, between Newtown Road
And
and
75.
Waxhaw Highway.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know what that is. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that.
It's near
I thought that was like
Middle
an
Spring.
end place. I didn't know it was a.
I did.
nursing home.
That's great.
Well, it's a assisted living.
Sorry.
They're not complaining about solar farms, by the way.
All right, you got other thoughts?
Can we also make sure that there's no Union County ordinance or text or anything regarding solar power generated facilities?
That's a good point, because I think it's important that if I'm an owner of the land and I'm looking into doing solar, I don't want to have to go to Tommy Tucker and say I want to de-annex out of Wesley Chapel, so that I can use Union County's rules instead of Wesley Chapel's rules. They should be close.
And I'm pretty sure they do. So I did a little bit of research, like I said. I remember seeing permits, and I don't know if they were electrical permits or what have you, specific to solar farms. I know they have a definition, and I've seen Union County refer to solar farms. I just can't remember what it was for right now. All right, go down the list. So we got other thoughts, right? Classify uses as essential service class 3 instead of 2. I think we're all good with class 2. Is that correct? Or it could be anywhere in Wesley Chapel, right?
Yeah.
No.
Just residential, I think, is because and again, I guess we have to look more into it, but the fact that if you want, you see, the rub is this, is that I don't want to, you know, certain people don't want to look at that, but if they're in a neighborhood and they're allowed to do it, then they can do it. Whereas the flip side of that is you don't want to tell somebody what they can or can't do with their property. So it's kind of,
Can't come down that.
Well, I mean, it's class 3, correct me if I'm wrong, Shelley, is business only district.
Yes, that's
Business
commercial
industrial.
Business industrial only, which for us would, is only a couple, you know, right here, the parking lot.
Right.
The dirt mound, right?
so it limits it severely.
So 2 or 3.
So,
So it's
3
not-
is limited to commercial industrial areas. 2 is everywhere.
And that's what I'm saying, I think it should be a 2, where it could be anywhere, any large acre, right?
I agree.
Anywhere in the district. That makes sense, otherwise we'll never have a solar farm ever.
right, well, yeah, because there's no.
Right. But then, but that's the reason why I'm jump real quick down to the next dot, it says require a minimum area to install.
Yes.
So this I think makes sense. This was brought up by Bill Rodriguez, I believe Paul as well. There's a couple council people too saying, or the mayor saying maybe we should have a minimum area.
So, since we're not experts on this, if we have somebody talk to us, shouldn't they tell us, we're not even gonna consider something unless it's this many acres? So
I agree.
plug that in.
I agree with that one. We all know there's a minimum amount of acres that they need to make this profitable.
I
Okay?
said 40
And we know they're not coming in and saying, I can do this on 3 acres.
Right, yeah.
But the
I
RA
agree.
200 is a minimum of 5 acres, right? That's what RA 200 is, right? Minimum of 5 acres? I think that's what the county does. They have a minimum of 5 acres.
Yeah,
That
but you
that
can't do
email you
anything
sent about Duke
Uh-huh.
and about, it related also solar farms, I'm pretty sure they're looking for bigger properties.
Yeah,
Like 40 acres and above, something like that?
My point is only this, let's just have somebody tell us.
Yeah, I agree with
Yeah.
Let's
that.
don't try to figure it out.
Okay.
So we'll see if we can find somebody to come to a meeting.
I'd like to, yeah. All right. Would you be able to reach out, Cheryl?
Yeah.
See if you- Sure, there's some phone book somewhere that has. All right, next we require a substantial $1,500 permit.
How do we get to that number?
I've seen that for cell towers.
For cell towers, $1,500.
Yeah, you're only charging for $50, and I've collected $1,500 for a cell tower, new.
Doesn't this come under the same discussion we were having before with the maintenance plan and requiring a bond? Or is that something?
No, this is a permit just to ask them to build it. Then we keep the money for it.
It's the zoning permit.
Gotcha, okay.
I like the zoning permit fee.
Yeah, all right.
We can work on the number, but
All
I
right.
agree. Do you guys see anything wrong with having 1,500 as the placeholder for now?
no.
Okay.
Now, then plus whatever the conditional, then plus the conditional use.
It would be nice that, Shelley, as you do your research perhaps, you could have some columns and rows, this little spreadsheet, to see if you can find, if somebody else has ordinances for this, find out what their permit fee is, find out what their minimum area is, right? So if we just see that, if you find 3 or 4 municipalities in the North Carolina area that has these.
So you wanted that was what you also wanted for the bonds, right?
Correct. Yeah, but I think comparing all these things we're looking at, what are their setbacks, what are their, I think Bill used to do this for us, right? Where he put together a little spreadsheet of what Marvin's doing, or what the county's
Yeah,
doing, or what
I've
Stockton's doing.
utilized it before, they're good.
Yeah,
You
that's,
put
it'd
yours down, then you put what everybody else is doing.
be nice to know, yeah, we're not too far off. That would help. Let's see. I asked council to give me some ideas at the last meeting. The minimum property size we talked about, CUP, special use, or conditional use zoning. Right, we're all asked. I think we're all thinking about a CUP right now.
Yep,
From
for
what I
this?
hear. Yeah.
Yeah, this would be CP.
Another thing that was brought up was discussed, and I had brought this up earlier, was clear cut. I know it's not traditionally what they would do, but how would that be effective? Because any landowner right now can do clear cutting. Anybody can. You
Well, they
can
can timber it, that's generally what it is. And you have to tread a little lightly if they've got a management plan and it really is planted as a tree farm. You have to tread lightly on that. They have a right to clear it.
Right. Now, if they don't have a tree farm, if they have 5 acres of land and they're gonna clear it and put in a solar farm, they're allowed to do that. We have an issue if it's a subdivision. If they're gonna put in a subdivision, right, then they fall under a tree mitigation ordinance. But if it's just a landowner who's clearing to put in a solar farm, should that be treated any different than say if they're clearing to put in soybeans? Right now they clear to put in soybeans and nothing we can do about it. But if they're gonna clear to put in a solar farm, is that something that we want to address? No?
Let them go.
Okay, let me just be the devil's advocate. I want to have a solar farm, and I clear cut. And after I clear cut my land, and I got my 100 acres, I wiped out every heritage tree. I go, you know what? I don't want to have a solar farm now. Now I want to have a subdivision.
You can do that right now, when you could say, nothing about a solar farm, I'm just gonna clear 100 acres, and then try and sell it to a developer and bring in an application
Right.
after you've done that.
But that's what we've been talking
That's what
about.
we're
is-
working on stopping.
is-
So, but that stopping would be stopping it independent of whether they said it was a solar farm or soybeans or anything. It'd still be the same things if you did put a stop to that.
No, but you clear cut it and you planted soybeans, we're for that. We're okay for that. It's where I'm gonna clear cut it and say I want to do a solar farm, and then I
Right.
say, there's no money in it. I'm not gonna plant soybeans. I'm gonna start building houses. That's
Right, what
we're
I'm saying is that argument has nothing to do with the solar farm, though. It's the same problem. What I'm saying is, what if they do go to clear cut and put in a solar farm?
Then that would be okay.
That's all.
I would
That was one of the discussion points. Do we all
Correct
feel,
that?
do we feel okay with that?
Yep, all right.
So, Deb, do you feel okay with that?
Mother Nature, I point to the great tree.
Like I said, we have stipulations for developing homes. What we're saying is we don't have a stipulation for developing solar farms. That's okay.
I'll look into that, I don't know.
Okay.
I just caution, tread lightly on bona fide farms and tree farms, because they can do it.
Right, but that's a whole nother other thing,
Yeah,
right?
we're not-
We can bring up a lot of other things too.
They make money after, what is it, they have to wait like 10 or 12 years, and they have to go in and thin them out.
Yep.
They've got a management plan, and then most of them are 20 or 25 years, and then they cut them all down, and they're supposed to replant them, but,
Okay.
Things change.
Yeah.
So screening, right, and someone brought up, is the screening in ratio to the height of the panels, right? So if we say 8 foot, minimum 8 foot high fencing, what if the panels they put in are 15 feet high, 20 feet high?
No, I haven't seen them.
Again, something that we need to ask experts. How high can these things be put in? I have no clue. What good is an 8 foot screening if the panels are 15, 20 feet off the ground?
Maybe we need to have a maximum height of panel.
Maybe-
Some of your
or
ordinance
ratio.
already talks about some
Right, maybe the
heights.
screening has to be a foot higher than the highest point of your panels or something. I don't know. Who knows? But so that goes back to screening, right? That was something that someone brought up. I thought was a good research that we need to figure out.
'Cause that's what you got now.
Yeah,
Oh,
but remember,
essential
you can't-
services.
You can't have a wall that higher than 14 feet.
Well,
That's true. Oh, it's a wall, not a fence.
All right, 14 feet's the number, not the height.
Of course, location specific was something that was brought up, right? Not the visual from the major thoroughfares, like what you talk about, specific places in town. Do we want to say where the town would allow this or where it would not allow this? Right? It's location specific. I think that could be a long discussion. We have to look at the map and go over that. I challenge you guys to think about that and bring it back next month. If there is any location specific places. And, yep, that's all. That's all I have from council. Mr. Como, is there anything else you thought of that we should research?
We did all the high points.
Just for my benefit, so to make some changes and for the August meeting, come back with a cleaned up version of this.
Yeah, this, and I think also it'd be nice if we had a spreadsheet comparing elements of other ordinances. Yes, anything else?
Especially Union County. Are we sure that there's no state mandated specifics on this, Shelley?
I've not seen on solar farms, no. I think what you were provided in, I guess in June, was some description of some model ordinances that Trade Association, I think, did you find them, Cheryl? You found
Yeah, I
them?
just came across them and I don't endorse them by any means. I just happened to.
So there was a model ordinance on that.
Consider.
And they divided them up. Seems to me they were much more specific about certain, if it's resident, how many acres and all that kind of stuff.
There's an article that I found, and this is not the article, but it sort of correlates to the article that I saw. The Department of Environmental and Natural Resources was considering a new permitting requirement that could significantly impact the future pace of solar developments in the state. It goes on to say that although details are scant, it appears that this proposal would give the state siting authority over new solar installations.
Is that regulations from, they call themselves Department of Environmental Quality, not DENR any longer.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're not doing any undue work if there's
Yeah, if they're
there's
gonna
a-
trash
if
it on
there's,
it.
yeah, stuff going on the state level that may override all this.
Exactly. I think that's the third thing was, bringing that representative from one of the solar farm companies. Because I bet you they're easily going to be able to cite what we can and can't do. If it's their business, at least they can point us in the right direction.
They'll know about any threats from the state, yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be, I think that could be a great wealth of knowledge. Okay. Anything else we're missing on solar farm generating facilities? Nope. All right, then on to number 9 on our agenda, text amendment for land use plan amendment process draft. Shelley?
Again, this is an initial draft text that were taken from some planning board suggestions in the past. Currently, the ordinance, there's no provision in it at all about how you actually do amend it. From what I gather from reading the minutes and some of Tim's notes, you were going to model it off, and which is probably right, just model it off the zoning ordinance, any kind of presentation, go to the planning board with recommendations, and you hold a public hearing, you know, with the 10 to 25 days, notify all the adjacent property owners, and then let the village council decide what to do. And that's the way this is modeled. So, you know, it would just be a whole new section at the very bottom of the land use plan, the very back of it. It's close to 6 pages now. You know, so I had to write up a little preamble, and then the rest of it's pretty perfunctory about what you said. A request to amend the future land use plan. This would include the land use map as well as the plan. Any objections must be considered when an amendment to the official zoning map is to be considered. The process may be initiated by the village property owner or applicant with the consent of the property owner. I mean, you could do it yourself all the time.
Can we say written consent of the property owner?
Sir?
Can we say written consent of the property owner? That was something we came up with the last one.
Well, your current ordinance requires that the property owner sign off on it. The application requires that now, that you have to, property owner, if they're not the applicant, they have to sign off on it. But we should put that in.
You said the ordinance says that, but this, we don't have a process right now, so. That's
Yes,
why-
but the form,
The form. So that's perfect. We say written consent, then it means
Right.
use that form. Okay.
Yeah,
Because we didn't have that on our last one. We had issues with, it didn't have the written, and it was back and forth, and it was a problem that we didn't have the written consent of those landowners, so.
Right, it's
Wanna make sure we
been,
spell
I
that.
guess it's been, the one I've seen includes the property owner has to do. I work in another location, and even the zoning ordinance, if they're not the applicant, the owner has to sign off on it. And
Oh, right.
That's all kind of constitution as they run around trying to find the property owner, you know, but
Well,
that's a good thing.
Yeah, because the issue was, I don't need the written consent because there is no process for land use plan asking to change it. And so that was a big problem, so that's why I want to make sure this.
Okay, we can put that in there.
Okay. All right. Do you remember?
Yes,
A whole month, we said, come back next month, and he's like, what, I have it here, we didn't get it, so, yeah. Go ahead.
All right, number 2, the plan amendment process requires 2 steps. Request to amend the land use plan first, after consideration decision on the plan amendment, then request to amend the zoning ordinance. How you would do that is on the agenda, you would deal with one and then you would deal with the other.
At the same meeting?
Yes,
Yep.
What if
just
you-
like you do with parallel conditional zoning now. If you don't get the conditional, you know, you rezoning it, but, you know, you gotta do both of them. You gotta get the conditional use and the rezoning.
What if you turn down the land use plan, can they still request to amend the zone?
No, not if you, that was the whole point, was to tie it together, that you had to get both, you had to get it approved. Or then you could say, well, they didn't approve it, so it's not consistent, you know, you get into that consistency and justification business.
Well, then before 2, should you put then if approved, number 2?
Mhm.
Right?
Clarification here, are we saying that this is gonna be changing the land use plan and the zoning at the same meeting?
Yes,
I'm opposed to that in a big way. It's not designed to be quick, it's designed to be slow. It's designed to give the residents a chance to input.
Aren't we supposed to look at the land use plan every 5 years?
Yes.
Well, then why are we going through this?
Good question.
I mean, why are we going through this? If we're gonna look at it every 5 years, why are we going through all this? It seems like a waste of time.
Well, then you could make an amendment that just says, changes to the future land use plan will only be done every 5 years.
Period. Let's go next.
Well, again, our 5 years is not, our 5 years are required just so we dust the book off and look at it. It has nothing, doesn't mean we can't look at it every meeting if we don't want to. 5 years is for us to look at it and refresh it, make sure it's up to date, that's all. So it's actually for us to review it and make sure it's up to date, not to address things as they come up, or not to not address things as they come up.
I just don't want to be in a situation where somebody walks in here and goes, I want you to change your land use plan, and everybody just goes into tither and does it, or tries to do it. I just think that we don't need to be doing it.
If it becomes a one-step process, what do we have the land use plan for to begin with? We just throw that other map away.
No, it's required.
Well, it's required because it's a two-step process. This is what we'd like to see in the future. This is what we have now.
But the land use plan is required by law, correct?
Correct.
It's
No,
required-
no.
Okay.
In North Carolina, you're not required to have a land use plan. I know there are corporations, municipal corporations, but they don't really have a land use plan. All they have is either capital improvements plan or transportation, and they use their zoning ordinance as their land use, their zoning map is their land use plan. So no, the state does not require you to have a land use plan. What happened about it, not quite a year ago, because it'll be a year in October, they came up with that new law where you have to have the consistency and the justification. And it said you can approve it, it's consistent with the land use plan, or actually it says plans, plural. So, I mean, it's not only land use plan, if you had a transportation plan, you had a capital improvements plan, you don't need water and sewer, but you know, you could tie all that together. Or it's not consistent. Or you're gonna amend the land use plan to make it consistent. I guess you could amend it to make it so that it's not consistent, but I don't know why you would do that, but anyway.
Didn't the planning board, didn't we already just say we didn't want them connected? I thought we did that at a recent meeting. We said
Yes,
we did not
we did.
want them connected, we wanted them separate. It had to be a separate issue.
I was thinking so as well.
Yeah.
That's not the
It's a two-step process, that's what
Right.
we agreed on.
Right.
Well, what you have here written too, Shelley, is that the plan amendment process requires 2 steps.
Yes,
So, is it possible to change land use plan, whether it be text change, say it's just text change, and does not require the zoning map change?
yes, it could be one or the other, because you could change the text in the zoning ordinance as well.
Right.
Because they're
maybe
really
it should
two
be-
separate documents.
So at the very least, it probably should not say requires 2 steps. But I think, but then we're also looking at this and saying, why do they have to be in the same? And even though this says, so number 2 says, you're saying requires 2 steps. One is to request to amend land use plan after consideration decision on plan amendment, then request the amend and zoning map. So the way I'm reading this, it's in series. One happens first,
Mm-hmm. That's the way I was
and of
reading
course,
it.
guess what? It's gonna come to the planning board.
Both
it
of
doesn't-
them would come to the planning board.
Well,
not
it says here,
together.
first, well, it says that you can't request the zoning map until after the decision on the plan amendment.
Right.
Well, the decision on the plan amendment won't happen until after it goes to council. And council approves it. So it can't happen in the same meeting. What you're saying here is it is in series. One, it's gonna happen first, the planning board, then go to council, they get approved or denied or whatever, council. Then the zoning will happen, which will have to come to planning board.
Right.
And so, what I think what we're wanting is written here. I wouldn't say requires, because you don't necessarily have to change the zoning map, or just say text changed on the land use plan. But, I like this because it is saying you have to wait till the one's decided on, then do the zoning after that.
Should you just say 1 and 2 can't be done simultaneously?
Yes, at the same meeting. I think that's good.
You could, it would say the same thing that's here is,
Just sort of.
after the decision on the plan amendment, then, because it says that, then request to amend the zoning.
Oh, right, like you
If
said.
applicable.
But you do want them kind of tied together, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
Well, they're saying here, everybody's saying no. We want to see the first one done, the
Okay.
Right.
decision ruled, then zoning if it's applicable. And honestly, that's exactly what you're saying right here. Am I reading that correct?
Yes, you're right.
It's designed to be 2 steps, and it's designed to be a slow process on purpose.
I would not say
No,
slow process.
it's
I
not.
would say,
It's not.
It's not
Well,
deliberate.
And it's
Not
not on
quick.
purpose.
I would not say.
It's
Not
not
quick.
You can say that.
I can say that quick.
I'm saying be deliberate.
well, then it's not, it can be it technically is it's 2 steps in order to make it consistent and justified, you gotta do it. But if you just amend the process, but that's the way it was being done before, was they were trying to amend, if I understood this right, they were trying to amend the land use plan, and then, so that they could go back and amend the zoning ordinance.
Correct. Correct. So one was done first.
Yes,
Once
well,
you
the
go to
land
vote on
use
that.
plan probably should be done first, yes.
Right. That's what you have here is part one is done first, after a decision, then part two is done if applicable.
Down in number 6, it says upon denial of reapplication for the same parcel for an amendment must wait 1 year. Can you also say reapplication for rezoning must wait 1 year?
Oh, that's already in the ordinance.
Well, that's the rezoning ordinance, that's not the land use plan procedure, right?
No, this is for strictly the land use. The zoning ordinance already says you have to wait.
Well, what if someone tries to do the land use plan first and they get turned down? Can they just immediately come back for a zoning change?
Yes, but then you're gonna have to be able to justify, is it consistent or not consistent?
With your land use plan.
Right.
Right.
Well, they can come and ask for zoning in the first place.
They can always ask.
Yeah.
But how often are you gonna have them keep coming back?
Huh?
Well, our dilemma right now is people don't ask, they just rescind the annex.
Well, some people ask.
So speaking of number 6, I got a note on number 6 as well, Charles, since we went to there. It says, the reapplication of the same parcel, like I said, must wait 1 year from date of previous denial. I might suggest you say, with exception of village staff, right? Because up here, number 1, you say it can be initiated by the village, property owner, or applicant, with written consent of the property owner. So I think if the village says, for some reason the village doesn't, the village shouldn't have to wait a year. You know, that could always be a thing.
Okay.
Outgoing staff to do.
Why would the village want to do it and not have to? What would the village be doing?
I'm just saying, if the village has a chance to do it, we should really say the next council that comes in next month to do something with that parcel. Right? Or suggest a land use plan for that parcel. In other words, we say, if the village says, I would like to make that property down there commercial, and it all goes through and we say no, it's a big tizzy fit, and then next month we have a whole new council that comes in and says, you know what, we were elected because we want that commercial. But guess what? We can't ask for it now, we have to wait a year. Because your last month's council said, already did it and denied it.
So we give special treatment,
To
we give
village.
special
We have to-
privilege, we give special treatment or privilege
To village.
to the village, but no one else.
That's correct. That's what I'm saying. And it's not a precedent, it's throughout our ordinances. That the village has that. For instance, if the village wants to put in an application for something, the village does not pay itself a fee.
Well, okay,
Right.
that makes sense. in that regard.
So the same thing here, why do we limit our governing ordinance that we can't even, do something? That doesn't make sense. Why we limit ourselves here? So if the applicant is the village, which we're saying it can be, we should not be in here saying that the village can't do something for a year.
So if the village decided that we wanted to change the zoning, the land use plan on a piece of property, you could just do it at will. Hear me out. You could do it at will and not have to talk to anybody and have a public meeting.
Yeah, we do that every 5 years.
When we redo the
No,
land use plan.
what you're saying is that if we want to do this, regardless of the council, you could apply, you don't get it, and then you can apply again. You basically can apply every month if you want.
The village, yes, that's what I'm suggesting. I'm saying we don't limit the village by having this written here to say that the village can't do it for a year. Because again, we're looking at the whole town. So if we look at the whole town and say, we don't want an ABC store, and we get denied. Say someone in the village, right, says, I want an ABC store. And that's what we're gonna, put that in with the village land use plan.
All right?
And every reviews it and says, it doesn't make sense, it gets denied. Well, guess what? For a year, no one can come back and say, I want an ABC store. Because this ordinance says that, oh, wait a second, back in July, you applied for an ABC store, you denied yourself it, you can't come back and ask for it again. Sounds silly, but I just want to make sure our wording is correct.
There's two sides to that coin. Let's say, normally I sit up there with Paul, directly to my left. Paul and I decide we want to rezone a piece of property, and we get voted out, or we get voted down. The other three council members say no, but we say yes. the issue dies. Next month, I find out that Amanda and Bill Rodriguez are on vacation and they're not gonna show up to the council meeting. Well, Paul and I said, well, now we're just gonna bring it up again next month and it's gonna fly right through.
That happens.
That happens.
Yeah, that happens. That's what I was
These
trying to-
are abuse of the language.
So remember, this is a land use plan process, a process that requires an application, requires a public meeting, requires to come to the planning board, requires the planning board to review it, give a suggestion to council,
I don't
council
want to-
review it, and maybe hold another planning board, or another public meeting, and then vote on it.
I don't want to just keep voting on stuff every month until I get the answer I want,
Right,
which could happen.
right.
And it won't be for an ABC store, that's just a commercial use.
Yeah,
I'm just throwing something.
I got the example.
That's not a good,
I'm just throwing something out.
Whatever the example is if I don't like the answer to the vote, and if I don't like the way the vote went this month, I'll just bring it up next month and keep bringing it up every month until I get the answer I want. That's
different.
potentially the other side of the coin.
So imagine me coming to a council meeting, you saying, I want you to review, the tree mitigation process or something, for that's called our land use plan. And I said, we can't. 8 months ago, we looked at that and we said, no. You can't bring it up, we can't bring it up as a village for another 4 more months.
All right, I see your point. So I would go along with, it's either the same for everybody across the board, but if you'd like to have, or we'd like to have, just a little bit for the village, right? I'd give you 6 months. But I'd only give you 6 months on that condition, okay? If there was something that was, like he says, and we've all seen this, is I wait for Chuck to leave and then I go, all right? Or I ask mommy to go to the movies and she says no, and then I ask daddy and then I get to go to the movies. Judge shopping, doctor shopping, whatever you want to
Again,
call
this is
it.
about application, right?
I understand, but I still want to give, I don't want to just give the full privilege to the village just because we're the village when it comes to this, when everybody else has to wait a certain period of time. Understand?
I do
It's either fair for everybody, but if you want to give a little something to the village, because there might be other factors at play, because we're not going to be here all the time.
Should we look into everything then, that the village is allowed to do, but citizens are not?
I think patience and a little perpetuity, if you want to give it 6 months or a 90-day review, I'm for that.
For everything.
No, like you said, for the village in this one matter, I'll give you that privilege. I'll give I agree to give the privilege that matter, and they still follow process. But just to give the village, they don't have to wait. There's no time period when they have to wait. You understand? You just keep going on and on and on until you get the answer you want. Am I making myself?
Sure.
I'm not trying to use an example. I understand the power lies with the people, but I understand if you've looked at something a lot and you see it, clearer heads may come along. Why do I have to wait a whole year, right? I got your point, and I take it. Why do I have to wait a whole year just because somebody was pig-headed or selfish that day, whatever word you want to use, okay, or spiteful? I got it. So I would give the village half. I'd give you 6 months. I'd give you 6 months that you can come back if the people have calmed down, got their facts together, and do that. If you're not happy with that, then I'm willing to give you 90 days when they come back and get the facts together. But I don't like the fact just to give the village, I can do it every month, or keep going until I get it done. I don't like that too much power going to a board. No offense, I know what you here. So it would be everybody plays by the same rules, or you get to play by half, you get a little bit because you are the government of the village. That's all.
Okay.
My take.
So, Shelley, will this be the same process that we would follow when we require ourselves to review the land use plan every 5 years?
Well, the way it's currently written, it says that you'll look at it every 5 years. Doesn't mean you can't go back and look at it in between there if circumstances change. The planning board, you can look at it. You could look at it every year if you thought there were instances where stuff, we never know quite what the future's going to bring. So you could go back and look at it more. You don't have to wait for 5 years. You can do it anytime you want to.
What I'm trying to ask is this the process that we would use to do that?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's modeled more or less on what's in the zoning ordinance. In the zoning ordinance, it has that 1 year wait
For the village?
for everybody. It doesn't specify, just says if it involves the same parcel, you gotta wait. It does say if they're changing circumstances. You know, I'm trying to think if I've seen some stuff where it's kind of hard to prove. If you say, well, why is it different than what you did before? And they said, well, now, the DOT says they're going to enlarge the road and spend money on something like that. That's the only time I've ever really seen it where they try to get it back on the table again. And usually it's because there's new owners or new developers have come with a different type of site plan or something like that. But it usually has to be fairly, something has to change on it to get it, otherwise you're gonna have to make a year.
John, will give you a perfect example. If Google decides that they're gonna take a field down here,
Yeah.
make that their new world headquarters, but they want their employees to have residential housing close by, and all of a sudden, our applications for a zoning change will be 50 in a day. That would be a situation where we would want to, say, well, I'm sorry, we've got to wait another X number of months or years before we can look at it again. I don't think we would shoot ourselves in the foot like that.
Sean, I've got a question about point 4. Specific land uses proposed for site would not have to be disclosed during the land use plan amendment phase.
Yes, I saw that in the minutes.
Okay.
Whereas if somebody came forward and said, well, I want to change this, they wouldn't have to necessarily, it's just like even now, if they're just getting a general rezoning for a classification, they're not obligated to tell you exactly what it is that they're supposed to be doing. That's one reason you have conditional uses, because then you can ask them. If they're just coming back for general stuff, they're going to get every use that's already permitted under the ordinance.
Shouldn't you almost say that they may not be disclosed because you can't hold them to it?
You can't even hold them to it. Even if they stand in this meeting and says, well, I'm going to do blah, 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 and then they come in with something different, you can't hold it to them.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Would, the word would, maybe that should be should?
Yeah, okay. We'll put should.
Or what about, or even will?
Okay, or will not, yeah.
Would not have to be disclosed during the land use process.
Yeah.
You want to put will not?
That's right. It does make a difference anyway.
Exactly, so, when we start.
What about number 3 in the community meeting, or should we change it to neighborhood, since we did it on the other one? We didn't, remember, we went back to neighborhood. I mean, it's going to be on a specific piece of property. You're going to know what the property is that's in question.
Can I ask you a really stupid question on my part?
I'm sure it's not, but go ahead.
Is there a difference between a community meeting and a neighborhood meeting?
No, I think it's just semantics.
Okay.
Like that other thing, what was it? A gate or a fence or whatever it was? Or berm, whatever, a hill, or what was that thing? That screen? That's what it was. No, the meeting before, there was a different.
There's an ad on TV. Am I a janitor and you're a custodian?
Oh, yeah, the spirit and the ghost. And,
Yeah.
All right.
Then, either way,
So,
neighborhood, community, whatever, as long as it's the same.
if it's given to understand that pretty much everybody in the immediate vicinity.
Public hearing.
Yeah.
Well, this isn't a public hearing. This
That's
is
there's the rub.
yes,
Right
it's
there.
not this is not a public hearing, this is a community meeting.
And it may not even be here, right?
No,
What type of meeting was it that Moser had that was originally scheduled for Wesley Chapel Elementary School that was then moved to here? What type of meeting was that?
Community.
That was a community meeting? Okay. All right.
Because it wasn't designed to focus on any one specific municipality or neighborhood. People from Indian Trail were coming, people from Weddington were coming. It wasn't just people in the neighborhood immediately next to that.
Right, now, having said that, should we, and because we have in here that people that are just around, if it's an issue like that one was, do we want to change, instead of neighborhood properties, do we want to put, like Deb said, do you want to put like a mile radius or give a circumference?
Sometimes we've used a quarter mile radius.
Well, I mean, yeah, not too much.
And also, what about a sign on property and an ad in the paper?
That's, you get into the public hearing stuff, this is the community meeting, and the 100 feet is what's in your ordinance right now. for notification.
So if we change it, then we got to.
What was probably that we did earlier.
100 feet.
All right.
We used 100 feet.
Okay.
Keeping in mind that we've had situations where developments have gone up on the borders of Wesley Chapel. So do you notify someone outside of Wesley Chapel if it's Indian Trail?
Yes.
Those are the issues. I had some discussions with Bill a couple of years ago where he goes, I meant to call Indian Trail, let him know that this is happening right on the border. And he did it out of courtesy, even though it wasn't physically written down yet. Now it's written down.
Okay.
If you don't put a sign in the property and you're only notifying people within 100 feet, that can really go unnoticed.
Yeah.
That's nothing. And now people calling, I didn't know.
So number 3 is clarifying that, rectifying that, correct?
Well, I
Is that what
mean,
number 3 is about?
you can make it further. I mean,
And
100 feet
you
is
can do that
nothing.
through a public hearing.
Well,
This isn't a
that's a
public
further
hearing.
step, but you
Not
guys.
now, but we can make it a public hearing.
Okay. And this is all that you have to go on to make your recommendation.
Yeah, this meeting has to be held prior to your meeting, not to go to the village council. They're gonna hold a whole nother public hearing.
And why doesn't this procedure, I'm trying to be nice, but I feel like this is only going up to planning board and it's not specifying what council will do. Did we not want to specify the whole amendment process? Poor Shelley just got thrown into this.
Well,
Welcome to Wesley Chapel.
yeah, it probably needs to go that this is prior to the planning board and then, you have the notification and then, eventually you're gonna have to make some kind of recommendation and it's gonna go through the regular process in the ordinance about how you're going to deal with it. So that probably, something along that, a little bit more on the procedures, okay?
The problem is our ordinance doesn't have a procedure even for council to amend the land use plan.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we wanted to get to.
Okay.
And back on that community meeting, so, Joe Developer goes and has a meeting somewhere and comes back and tells you, everybody has loved it, they found us the best thing since sliced bread. There's no minutes.
That might help,
there's
that might help it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nothing here.
That's my concern. So I think that that's great that, and there must be some meaning too, so.
You might want to require it be here at town hall, at least.
Can we do that, or is that something like, again, that it's not in the ordinance so that we can't enforce that?
No, this is the land use plan. We were trying to, your meetings are obviously held here.
Right.
And the village council's public hearing is held here. So, these community meetings, are held by the applicant. So, I guess you could specify they had to be in a public thing. I don't think that would be prohibited, but I didn't know how much you wanted to be involved in it. I mean, do I think you ought to, somebody from the village ought to go? Yes.
Right.
And of course, anybody, it would be open to, it'd have to be, We could put, open to the public, it has to be, but at a minimum, they gotta notify the people 100 feet or half a mile, whatever you wanna put in there. Now, that's gonna be fairly significant. One of the things I did want to bring up on this is, and you probably remember from some of your training on a map amendment, you get over 50 parcels at a time that you're trying to amend, you're gonna have to put that map in the paper.
For zoning,
Yeah.
not for land.
Not necessarily for the land use plan, but because we had all this tied together, but I see we're gonna take it a little bit apart. But I did wanna bring that up and remind you, if you're gonna do a whole bunch of 50 parcels, then you have to put it in the paper, the whole map, that, if somebody comes in and wants 50 parcels done, then what are you gonna do? Do you feel obligated to put that map in the paper? It's not rezoning, but it's, smells like a duck, walks like a duck, is a duck, that kind of stuff.
Well, does it say, I'm trying to remember that rule, does it say that you have to put it in the paper, or is it that in lieu of sending all these letters? You can
Yeah,
just put it
it's
in
sending
the
all the letters, but then.
It's in lieu of sending letters?
paper? Yeah, I think so.
But sending the letters gets, if you're somewhat conscious,
Yeah.
but it requires the publication. I could look at that, but
That seems kind of.
that was seen, but
You
they
get around
made
the
some
If
changes
you don't read the
to it.
paper, if you don't get the paper.
The
then,
only
you know.
time we've done it is when we had ETJ and it was a
Yes.
lot of parcels and, because I think it has to be a half-page ad, it's expensive, so you don't want to do it
And you just can't do it once.
twice,
You just can't run it once.
No.
And then the other thing is who's gonna pay for all these letters?
The developer, I would assume.
The applicant.
Yeah, the applicant.
So we need to
No,
have that
exactly.
written.
You've already got, there's an application fee on your fee schedule now, but yes, you don't add any kind of ad cost or anything, and sometime when you want to revamp your thing, I would heavily advise you to, when you do these conditional use and rezonings and all that, that you put in there plus the ad cost.
Paid by applicant.
Yeah, it's just part of the fee, along with your engineering fees or any of that kind of stuff.
Which, they've got, an undue burden. Kind of expensive and things of that nature that they don't.
Well, generally, you're gonna end up fronting it, you'll run the ad, like for the public hearings, you'll run the ad, and then you have to recoup that sometime down the line. Usually you do that before you'll give them the permit. You said, well, you gotta reimburse the town for your public hearing ad costs, and then they scurry around trying to get checks and cash together.
But it should just be written in the thing so that they're aware.
Yeah, but you're gonna have to amend your fee schedule, because I didn't see ad costs included on any of the fee schedules for any of this stuff.
Well, I know in some of our things, and I think it may be for a conditional use, we say in the ordinance that they will pay for them. They will prepare and deliver to us postage, letters with postage, and we will mail them. So it's not really a fee, but they're doing the work, time, and cost.
Well, it's enough for you just to check to see the list that's been done.
Right.
Yeah.
Can we go back to number 4 on this? Specific land use proposed for a site. We said we'd change would to should.
Or will not.
Will not.
Will not have to. Can we not just scratch the have to and say will not be disclosed
There
during
you
the
go.
meeting?
Yeah.
Not required.
No, because we don't want them to do it.
Yeah, how much?
Sure at all.
And when you're saying they don't have to do it, it implies they can if they want to.
Right, so just you're saying will not be disclosed?
Will not be disclosed during the land use plan amendment phase,
I agree.
period.
Will not be required, will not.
Wait a second, you're saying that,
Cannot.
I want to change the land use plan, but I'm not going to tell you what the land use is.
Yeah, 'cause
Right.
they don't have to.
Right.
Because they're not
What
they're
they
not
can just
stuck
make
to
them
it.
Tell us whatever they want, but it doesn't matter because they don't have to stick to it.
Because they're gonna tell you the sweetest use, and then they're gonna turn around and do whatever they want.
There's not required to
I think
keep.
that's a pretty general statement, but to say that I'm gonna change land use, but I'm not gonna tell you what the land use is.
Because they
Seriously,
can,
think about those words.
Yeah, but look what's on the,
I wanna make this institutional. That's it. I'm not gonna say anything else. Just, I think it makes sense that this should be institutional. That includes us. We're the applicant. So if we say every 5 years, I wanna change this area over here to business, I'm not gonna say why. We can't talk about the why.
Let me hold it.
well, I don't know, but I was just gonna show, look, it's very general.
Because it
I mean,
says-
it doesn't say much. You don't want
Well,
to-
that's the map, that's not the plan.
Yeah.
that's the future.
Yes, but the future land use plan doesn't go into that much detail exactly what these are.
If it's in the table of uses, they can do it.
Yeah.
And for zoning, correct. But the plan is just what we want to do. That's what we're reviewing here, right? So the plan is saying what I want to do, but I can't tell you what I want to do. But I want you to change it to doing something, but I'm not gonna tell you what I want it to.
Don't you remember the last person who applied to change our land use plan? They showed us all this beautiful PowerPoints of what they were gonna do, and then they changed it every time they came to the meeting. It changed constantly. They're not required, whatever they say, this pretty picture they
It went from
paint.
European-looking little avenues and
Yeah, because they're not held to it. They shouldn't be allowed to, they shouldn't be allowed to show you what they plan to do because they're not required to do that.
But I'm talking about the process, right? And not about one particular person. And right on here it says the village can be the applicant. So, which means is anytime we review this on our own, this is the process we follow. That's what I asked you. So if we are setting an application every 5 years or whenever we want to review this plan, what we can't say, if we say that, we shall not say what it shall be used for, then we specifically can't say why we want to change the land use plan and what we want it to be used for. You know, what if I want this to be R40 because I want to park? Oh, you can't say park. Because you can't specifically say what you're going to use it for.
It does say.
That's what I'm saying, that's what this would say, right?
Right.
So I'm just talking about the
Well, I
word.
think I understand what you're saying. So
But
if
the
we
wording
can,
says we can't say that. I'm going to stop anybody from saying what you want it to be used for.
well, if
Yeah.
we want it to be R40, it can be any use in R40. It could be residential, or it could be park or church or school.
And we may have someone saying, oh, but I want it to be a park. We can't say that.
but I
And
think
I won't
what
allow
John's
this to say
saying is
specifically, you shall not say what you're going to use it for.
But
You,
most,
so what you want is, sorry, what you're saying is, you want to put it in there that they don't have to, but we don't want to use such light language as don't have to. But you still want, if they want to tell you, then they should feel free to tell you.
Or we should be able to tell us. Yes, we should,
Right,
have,
yeah.
we should have the option to say it. Because if you say in there, shall not, then as the chairman, as the mayor, we will not allow them to say what it can't. We cannot talk about what's going to say because it's our ordinance.
Okay.
That's our procedure.
Well, I think, you know, you kind of, this is a vision.
Correct.
So, if you notice, it says low density, and these are all your residential districts, and then, you know, it actually lists what the district is. So, your presumption is that you go back to the ordinance and say, well, if I want to do R80, well, one of the things in R80 is indoor recreational facilities.
All right, let me ask a question here.
Let's just use the word may.
That's what I was gonna say.
Maybe.
If we went, because
Yeah,
maybe
That's
go
the
either
argument.
way.
Don't.
Yeah.
It could be may not as in you may not, or it may not as in you may not. So, I mean, it's kind of.
Or just take it, strike it all the way out, and just
Yeah.
don't say anything, but
Yeah.
the thing is, they need, if you look down further, it says the justification. Well, what kind of justification are they gonna use? You know, their DOT is going to upgrade that road, they're gonna be able to hire more stuff. What if the school system comes in and says, well, we wanna put a school out here, or maybe it's a park, but, you know, what kind of justification are they going to be able to argue that this needs to be changed? What kind of standards, or why do they think, is it demographic, is it older stuff? Why do they think it needs to be changed?
Well, they should be allowed to say that.
Yes,
I
they
don't
should
think-
be
I don't
allowed
think
to
we should
say
have
that.
language to say that you're not allowed to tell us why. What you think should go there, what the
Well,
use,
you don't
what
want to, I don't
envision it
think,
used
I
for.
think what you meant is you don't want to see any and you don't wanna see a specific plan, whatever. If they wanna zone it R40 or INO or something, then the understanding is that if it's INO, and then but they still, you understand, that just because they put it on here, they still may have to go back and have it rezoned.
Right.
So when you go back and rezone it to, one of the B zones or something like that, they still got to go through the zoning process.
And then they're not allowed to.
Right.
Yeah, they're
There-
really
there's
not.
specific- well, there's
And you know what
specific
that's
things they're
like,
allowed
you're
to.
sitting there doing this number
Right.
with them and they're yakking away and they're going,
That's when they're not allowed to tell you specifics.
Well, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. If you're not allowing a person to say what they're doing for the zoning, why do you want to allow them to say it
yeah,
for the
that's
land
why you
use?
really shouldn't do, they should justify why they want it rezoned. Is it demographics? Is it road improvements? Is it because the school system is seeing that kind of growth out in there and they want to put a school out there or something like that? Why do they want to get it done?
You don't want to say it's going to be a coffee shop
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
or a Krispy Kreme.
That we're going to put a
Because it
grocery
could be
store, whatever, or a
It could be a
Lowe's. You
few
don't, you don't really want
Or a
to.
tire change. So
They need to tell you why they think it's justified. What changes are happening either in the land or the transportation or something. Maybe Union County's putting more water and sewer lines out. Why do they think it needs to be changed? I mean, that's the whole focus of it. Why do they think it needs to be changed? And you could do this every year if you wanted to.
Right.
And we never know why it may need to be changed. Who was it? Oh, the village talked about it. Google came, and I'm sure everybody would be all over themselves. But
If we want to change the land use plan, say, to adopt solar farms, right? The village would like solar farms, we would like it on the south end of the Wesley Chapel. I'm not gonna tell you any of the specifics, just leave it at that.
But that's not in the land use plan.
I'm saying,
Well,
I'm
he's
trying to
just-
use an example.
he's using it as
It's
an
not in the
example.
plan, so if we had an amendment process, right, where we came and reviewed the land use plan and said, let's have a zone for solar farms. And I
Well, that
want-
would be different if
And
you
I want to
had
amend
a
it to
future
have
land
solar
use plan
farms
district.
in the South End District, right? But we can't say any specifics. I'm not gonna say anything about the height, the size,
Yeah.
what be allowed, nothing. I'm not even allowed to talk. And if somebody would bring it up, Mike, if you wanted to bring up the roads, I said, you're not allowed to bring those up. I'd have to stop you specifically because we're the applicant today wanting to amend this. And we'd be restricting ourselves. We'd be restricting ourselves from even discussing specifics or anybody that wants to come up here and give us a PowerPoint.
Because I understand that that's what happened the last time, that everybody got into the nuances about looking at
The
what
pretty
would
pictures.
be the pretty
Yeah.
pictures, but that got away from the focus of why do you think it needed to be rezoned? Just,
And that was
you
one
know,
example.
is it financial? But really, you should keep it down to road improvements or demographics or,
Which comes under, as far as I'm
Like
saying,
the
it
like the
comes under
state found
number five.
$1.5 million for a roundabout.
Okay, my butt's getting really, really sore, and we.
So that comes under number
In
five.
my
Thank you,
opinion,
clear.
in my opinion, we need to move on these points, point by point, or do something to get us going on this. How do we want to do this? Do we want to vote on the 6 points?
No. Well, we've already made significant changes, so we probably just need to.
Well, I think we already covered 6. 5, just, it kind of meets out as number, where's it, 4? Because we already went over that.
Yeah.
I think we fixed it with May.
Uses or plans, I'm gonna,
Right.
Okay, so Shelley, you're amending this, and then you'll bring it back. to us
yeah,
next
I
time?
think that's what needs
Okay,
to be
yeah,
done.
cool. Can we move on to the next
We've
one?
got too many
Yes.
changes just to say,
Okay.
hey, we
Moving
go.
on.
It would be changes, renewed every 18 months then. Well, 5 years.
All right, so that's,
Okay.
You just said that was the minimum, you wanted to go back and look at it every 5 years, but it doesn't prohibit you from doing it anytime you want to.
We don't have one more thing, right? We have
Trailers.
short trailers.
Let's move. Yeah.
Maybe we get them. All right, Shelley, text amendment for construction trailers.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question on this before she gets into the discussion? Do we have anything that's pressing us for resolution on this tonight, Shelley?
No, sir.
Okay. I'm motion we table this
Second.
until next month. Okay, that's fine.
Okay, all in favor?
I don't have it.
Okay. Other business, subdivision ordinance prevent clear cutting of intentional existing vegetation. Did you say that? Yeah, we're on to number 11. Yep. So Deb, do you have anything else on this one?
I can make this short and sweet, 5 seconds. Well, maybe 15. I gave you guys, in your packet, you have all those comments that, of the people that we spoke with to get their input, and I found this stuff from Tim in an email that he sent that I thought was interesting, and so I'm including that also. Just to add to your information that you already have. You can see what everybody says. I also, Will Ortez sent a 213-page, I'm sorry, I'll go over here. 213 pages of trees that he recommends that you not plant or that you do plant. And so I didn't print that out because it's on color pictures and it's a bunch, but I have the PDF. So I have the clear cutting addendum. Shelley and I haven't been able to have a chance to talk to about where that should go in the proposed addendum. And George is still looking at it. He hasn't gotten back to us, but hopefully when we get those together, George gets back with the clear cutting addendum and says this is okay, or this is not okay, or whatever. And then Shelley says, well, it should go here. Then we can bring it back, and you guys can make a decision on what you want to do with it. That's it. Unless you have any questions. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Text amendment for signs. Shelley, do you have anything to report on this one?
No, I'll be honest with you, that's a bigger project than what I'd like to, undertake. And I never got a clear picture exactly what the issue was. Was it just certain parts of the ordinance, or are we talking about a wholesale redo?
It was the whole sign ordinance, and it was the Supreme Court case that said.
Oh, the Gilbert?
Yes.
So to be honest, we're just waiting to hear what the law states that we need to change it.
Well, you can't regulate signs, size, and whatever based on content. It has to be neutral.
So if you're telling us that's what's legal, my guess is bring that updated ordinance to us. We'll probably glance over it, and again, if that's something that's required by state law, we'll send it on.
Well, it's the Supreme
We
Court.
probably should just let our new planner.
Yeah,
What's that?
We probably should just wait for our new planner. We've been out of compliance for 3 years, so.
Yeah.
All right, then on to other business, updates on projects.
In my discussion with the chairman, he asked me to come up with my top 5, what I've been working on. And they are, the top 5 is the Quintessa Amenity Center Phase 2. That's the build out of the amenity center in that gated community off of Underwood. That is a private facility that is only utilized by property owners and their guests. The Novant Center right next door. We've had some inspections on their landscaping, lighting. They certainly are moving along. They seem to be doing a lot of stuff inside right now. Southern Whimsy, the owner has engaged an architect, and they're supposed to be bringing a site plan. We've been back and forth with DOT about whether or not they can get a driveway permit. Anyway, we're waiting for a site plan to see exactly does it comply with the ordinance. Conservation subdivision ordinance. That's on the August 13th Village Council agenda for them to call for a public hearing.
And I do think that they have made changes from what we sent them, I think. I know, so that's what you
No,
guys
that's
think.
their prerogative.
And they're having a public hearing at that meeting and potential decision.
Correct.
Doesn't us, what date again? 13.
13th.
If I recall correctly, I think some of the changes were smaller lot sizes approved. So we did like a 30,000, 40,000. 30,000 was like only 30% or something like that. Yeah, so, but they reduced that, I believe.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So something to consider, something to go talking about. But, I told them, if we have more discussion, it's a joint meeting, right? So they decided to make their changes and we'll see where that goes.
We get Indian Trail.
No, what's the chapter?
Oh, was it, John?
All right, I got one more. We've got a 28 lot subdivision on Chamwood Road. We've just done the first reviews. We're doing the reviews. The village engineer has made some comments. We're waiting to see DOT comments. I'm trying to get up with the school district right now. I doubt if 28 lots is going to set them off that way. But you will get that because it is a major subdivision once they go through the review process.
Okay, so you do check with the school district on those?
Yes.
Is that something we did in the past? I heard that we
We
did.
do, and generally they say the school is awful crowded, we really can't handle it, and we go, okay.
We also tell them they have to get a letter
it doesn't have
from
any-
Union County Public Works for water and sewer that they have the capacity to do that as well.
Right.
So it's just, my philosophy is, you know, we've only seen one review now. We wait to see what the engineers come back with. We usually look at it again. I like to get it in good form before you ever see it. And then, you know, you make your recommendation and then it goes to the village council. Because it is a major subdivision.
Right, and something we instituted that this will be new for us. So when you do bring this, we ask for a check sheet. So sure, you should have it, right?
Yeah.
And make sure that's in your packet. So when we see our packet, it's, you know, check sheet with dates that says, all this was done by this date, so whether it's, like I said, check with schools, sewer, water, all those things. I think it's an 8-page check sheet or something like that. Whatever, we haven't seen that yet come through in a new subdivision application, but
Well, the only one I've seen, it's 9 pages, and that's what I use to review it.
I think that's the one.
Oh.
Yeah, if you can make copies of that and
Okay.
submit that to us when it comes to planning board. And what we said was utilize that as like a traveler that goes throughout the process. So if we see something that we don't like, we want to amend it, right? Next month, we'll see that same check sheet come back with that line item that's been amended or, you know, addressed. That's checked off and dated when it came, it was done, right? So, and then as it goes on to council, the same thing.
I've seen it's like 9 pages, but it was what I used to
That's what they
go through the orders, or that's what they did. Okay.
Yeah, we're just using that for more accountability, to make sure everything's covered. Because we've had some things come through in the past, we've gone through and checked, that slipped through and it didn't match our ordinances, right? Or something didn't get communicated, a required change that we wanted to council. So this is a way that we're going to have that check sheet. We're going to make sure that we go over the review, make sure, yep, every single item has been reviewed and checked off. And if we want something changed, it goes on to council, whatever. So like a little travel throughout the process.
Yeah, well, you know, you can recommend, you know, certain things. That's
Exactly.
in your report.
Yep.
Okay, so I've seen the checklist, but I didn't. It was just the one I used.
That's why I'm bringing it up, yeah. We talked about having a formal one, then I think it was Tim that said, well, this is the one I use, and we looked at it and said, yeah, let's
Yeah, it's
use
pretty
that for now.
standard. I've seen ones that's not quite 9 pages, but you gotta have a magnifying glass to sort of
Right.
look down it. But yeah, it's
Well, we thought we'd just give that a try on the next one, which might be this one you're seeing now. So if we could use that as our trial, see how it works. If it works, great. If it doesn't, then we'll, you know, review that part of the process. All right, was there anything else on that, Sean?
Cheryl and Shelley, I don't know who would do this, but the state just repaved Wesley Chapel Road from the circle, from down here at 84 all the way up. And where they filled in on the berm, the side, it looks like it's pea ground, I don't know what it really is.
It's a base, right?
Well, it's the edge of the road, I mean, and so it is washing out profusely. There's one cone where it's really washed out, and it's potential to really have an accident. I don't know why they chose that particular aggregate to use, because it washes and it doesn't hold. I'd like somebody to call DOT and ask them to fix it.
Can you tell us exactly where that problem is?
Between my subdivision and the,
Sheridan.
thank you.
It's Sheridan, it's the entrance to Sheridan, and it goes all the way up to Wesley Woods past Harfield Drive. It's on the north side of the road, where the area where Heritage is building Old Evergreen Parkway.
Didn't they just have an accident there as well?
It's the fire truck.
Total fire truck. It's completely total.
And by the way, just an FYI, on our website is a link to DOT, and you click that link, you can input any problem you have with anything to do with a road.
I'd
whether
rather
it's-
have somebody that has title behind their name to do that.
No, anybody can do it, and they get back to you within a day or two.
Well,
It works wonderfully. I'm just recommending, if you see a street sign, anything, a pothole, they're really good with it. I've used it several
That's really
times.
dangerous. I mean, it just,
Extremely,
Yeah.
I mean,
We're here.
it's.
I've said this 4,000 times, people are really sick of it. DOT does not know how to build highways and roads here in North Carolina. It's just a sin.
All right, anything else? Gentlemen?
Got one thing. I really think that we need to reach out to the property manager or developer, whatever it is, of the people who have this area up here, because we finally, after however many years, got no one. And, you know, and we were in there, we were discussing about how, oh, you know, something like a Qdoba or the Dunkin' Donuts or whatever. And, you know, and essentially they were like, and, you know, we already went over down at the end of Jim Wilson, how they have Hobby Lobby and Ross and all the stores that we were talking about, that they told us that there's not enough people here. They're getting all of that in there, building it from scratch. And the other thing, and I guess personal thing, but it's kind of chaps my backside, they just got a Dunkin' Donuts over there by Lowe's and Harris Teeter off Cuthbertson Road, going straight across where it goes over Providence. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
In Waxhaw.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So something that close, and again, the roofs and whatever, because they're about the same. So for them to tell us that, no, they're not gonna come over here, they don't wanna come over here, they want this, that, and the other thing, yet everything that we asked for, everybody else is getting it. So there's something going on there. And all we have the only thing we have to show for it after 3, 4, whatever it is, years is no bond, which completely blacks out this building, but nonetheless. So I think we really need to have another conversation with them to reach out to them, because it is slow going. I mean, it doesn't seem like anything, they already had, by the time that we contacted them, they already had a contract to build another one. So in my opinion, there hasn't been anything done. So, I mean, I don't think there's any kind of leverage that we can have against them, but by the same token, I think it's something that we should try and re-engage with them, you know, as much as possible, to kind of, you know, light a fire if at all possible, so we can get these things filled. You know, I mean, because some of these places are pretty good, right? So maybe they don't want to have something, so they're like, oh, well, they won't let us in up here in Western Chapel. Well, we're going to go down to Waxhaw. And then, much like what you were talking about, the solar farms, on a much smaller scale. But, you know, so, you know, potentially we're losing out on business because they're saying they're not courting them or they're not talking to them or whatever the case is. So that's my little
One
comment.
suggestion at the advance, when the shopping center was brought up, the mayor had said that he would reach out to them, and he was engaging them, so you might
Good.
want to just mention it to Brad and ask him if he's had recent conversations.
Okay, perfect. And I'm sure the road widening's gonna make a big difference.
Yes. So, anyway, that's my little 2 cents.
Yeah, sign
And
it.
just one other thing. Is anybody doing anything to get us a zip code?
Brad
Brad is next
Yeah.
year.
Western Chapel to get
Yes, in
something
about
done?
10 years.
Yeah, don't you hate that? Well, you can't sorry.
We stopped at a little store in Virginia, had a population of 72.
Then they have zip codes.
Yep, and they had a mailbox where you could put mail in and mail it, imagine that. And then they had boxes up there for people. 72 people.
Well, Mineral Springs has a post office.
Mineral Springs has a post office. Now, they don't have postal delivery, but they do have a post office.
But the mayor did reach out again, and they told them, you have to wait 10 years, so.
10 years.
Yeah, and we last applied in 2009. I'm pretty sure I know what the answer's gonna be.